Chapter 337. Azure Dragon City. In the depths of the house of Marquis Qin, in an extremely luxurious loft, LV Yongsheng stared at the shattered jade tablet in his hand with a dark look in his eyes. He muttered to himself, General Fei Chang's life tablet has shattered. Someone actually managed to kill him in this mission. Could it be that there's an expert hidden in Ratanama City? Crack. His right hand clenched, crushing the jade tablet in his hand. LV Yongsheng sneered, no matter what kind of expert he is, if he provokes me, he will die all the same. I will deal with Ratanama City after this battle for the Vitality Tower is over. Whoosh. A green flying ship flashed across the sky. 4 figures stood on the deck of the flying ship. It was Zhuowen's group of 4. We've been flying for almost a month. Looks like we'll be arriving at the provincial capital soon. A slender figure stood quietly at the bow of the ship, gazing into the distance as he muttered to himself. This figure was Zhuowen. It had been almost a month since they set off from Ratanama City. There weren't many obstacles along the way, and they practically braved the wind and waves as they advanced. Some of the bandits along the way tactfully retreated when they saw the high-grade soul treasure flying ship. Those bandits weren't stupid. A faction that possessed a high-grade soul treasure flying ship wasn't one that they could rob. This also saved Zhuowen's group a lot of trouble. After flying for another 2 hours, the silhouette of a huge city appeared in the distance. This city was like a huge slumbering dragon. Just looking at it from afar, it gave off a heart-shaking feeling. Moreover, it was impossible to see the borders of the city from afar. The first impression it gave was that it was so vast that there was no end to it. Is that the provincial capital? I didn't expect it to be so big. Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying were also shocked by the dragon-like city in the distance. The size of the provincial capital had greatly exceeded their expectations. It could no longer be called a city. It could be called a national capital. The county capital is the most powerful city in the entire Muqin County. At the same time, it's also the largest city. Even if all the super cities in the entire Muqin County were added together, they would not be able to compare to it. Jiyu Yu Tian was not surprised at all. He had been here with Master Karaki before, so he was not surprised. Of course, when he first arrived, his reaction was not much better than Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying. Zhuowen was the calmest among the 3 of them. However, his heart was still moved by the size of the county. This county was much larger than the super city, Broken Rock City. If Broken Rock City was a river, then this county was an entire ocean. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As they got closer to the county capital, Zhuowen and the others also discovered that there were many black figures in the sky around the county capital. Those who entered the county capital were basically representatives from other cities who had come to participate in the Vitality Tower battle. Many of these representatives rode on flying boat soul treasures. Of course, there were also some who rode on tamed flying meta beasts. There were even people who rode on huge gourds that broke through the sky. There were many different kinds of flying methods. However, the representatives of these cities had one thing in common, and that was that on their respective flying mounts, there was a flag with the symbol of their respective city. The patterns on these flags were all strange, and each of them represented a different city. In Muqin County, the cities that were qualified to use flags to symbolize their cities were basically high-grade cities and above. However, mid-grade and low-grade cities did not have the qualifications to have flags. It should be known that flying soul treasures and flying meta beasts were extremely rare treasures. With the pitiful foundation of mid-grade and low-grade cities, it was unlikely that they would possess such treasures. Therefore, Zhuowen and the others discovered that the representatives of the various large cities, who flew over from the sky, all had a flag that represented the status of their city. It also invisibly separated the middle-grade cities from the low-grade cities. In addition to the numerous flying soul treasures and meta beasts in the sky around the county capital, there were also numerous carriages that advanced on the land below the county capital. These carriages basically represented mid-grade and low-grade cities. At this moment, among these carriages that were constantly entering the county capital, there were warriors who would occasionally poke their heads out and look enviously at the representatives of the various cities that were constantly flying into the county capital. They knew that the flying soul treasures were all geniuses from high-grade cities and even supergrade cities. These were the group of people who were most likely to stand out in the Vitality Tower battle. We're almost at the county capital. We should prepare to disembark later. Looking at the approaching county capital, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a trace of anticipation. Just as Zhuowen was about to land at the entrance of the county capital for inspection, a white flying boat suddenly approached Zhuowen's side. Zhuowen, someone is deliberately approaching us. Jiu Tian suddenly frowned and said. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen could not help but look at the white flying boat that was approaching their Qing Fan boat with a trace of doubt on his face. From the flag on the white flying boat, they could tell that it was a high-level city. And from the aura of the flying boat, they could tell that it was a middle-level flying spirit treasure, which was a level lower than their green boat. At this moment, there were 9 figures standing on the deck of the white flying boat. The most eye-catching one was a middle-aged man standing at the front of the boat. Zhuowen could faintly feel a powerful aura from the middle-aged man. Although it was slightly weaker than General Fei Chang's aura, the difference was not huge. Clearly, this middle-aged man should be a half-step ultimate King Realm expert. Other than this middle-aged man, the other 8 were rather young. There were 6 men and 2 women. Their auras varied, but the weakest among them was at the advanced Earth King realm. The strongest among them was a man in green who actually had the strength of a complete Heavenly King realm expert. Zhuowen could tell at a glance that the middle-aged man was the city lord of this high-grade city. After all, high-grade cities were not comparable to super cities. There were very few ultimate King realm experts among the city lords. Only a few extremely heaven-defying high-grade cities had an ultimate King realm expert. Otherwise, it was extremely difficult for an ultimate King realm expert to appear. The high-grade city in front of them should be a relatively ordinary high-grade city. The middle-aged man on the white flying boat looked at the 4 people on the Qing Fan boat with some doubt. He then cupped his hands and smiled. I am Fan Yi, the city lord of Qingjiao City, a high-grade city. May I ask which city you are from? Hearing the other party say that they were from a high-grade city, Jiu Tian and the rest were a little nervous. After all, they were only from a low-grade city, and high-grade cities were a distant existence to them. Zhuowen walked forward lightly and said calmly, we are from Rattan Armor City. May I ask why City Lord Fan is looking for us? Rattan Armor City? Fan Yi couldn't help but frown. He didn't seem to have heard of a high-grade city or a super city called Rattan Armor City. Fan Yi naturally had his own plans for approaching the Qing Fan boat where Zhuowen and the others were. The Qing Fan boat itself was a high-grade spirit treasure. Such a high-grade flying spirit treasure was very rare in high-grade cities. After all, Qingjiao City only had a mid-grade flying spirit treasure. Because of the Qing Fan boat, Fan Yi thought that Zhuowen and the others might be from a super city. Even if they weren't, they should be from a powerful high-grade city. Therefore, he wanted to establish a good relationship with them. After all, one more friend meant one more path, especially in a cruel battle like the Essence Chi Tower. If he met someone he knew, perhaps he would let him go because of their previous relationship. However, Fan Yi found the wrong target. Zhuowen and the others weren't from a high-grade city. They were only from a low-grade city. However, Zhuowen's current strength wasn't weaker than ordinary high-grade cities. Therefore, in front of Fan Yi and the others, Zhuowen was very calm. Fan Yi looked at the young man in front of him in surprise. The doubt on his face deepened. Could it be that the city's representative was this brat? However, this surprise was quickly replaced by a touch of horror because he found that he couldn't see through the young man in front of him. Especially when he looked at the young man in front of him, he could feel a faint sense of threat from the young man. This sense of threat was very strong. It was as if the young man had met a natural predator. Fan Yi couldn't help but frown. Father, what's wrong? The green-clothed man beside him looked at Fan Yi with some doubt. He found that Fan Yi had stiffened in place after meeting Zhuowen's gaze. Nothing. After regaining his senses, Fan Yi looked at the young man in front of him with some fear. He quickly said with a smile, young friend, why don't we enter the prefecture capital together? We're not familiar with the prefecture capital, so we can travel together. That way, we can take care of each other. After feeling the faint sense of threat from Zhuoan, Fan Yi increasingly felt that the people in front of him were most likely from a supercity. Otherwise, how could a young man give him such a feeling? However, Fan Yi's humble attitude immediately stunned the other young men on the white airship. They didn't expect their governor to be so polite to the young man in front of them. It was Fan Yi's abnormal behavior that caused the 8 young men behind him to stare at Zhuoan strangely. After looking deeply at Fan Yi, Zhuoan smiled and said, "Okay. We are indeed not familiar with the prefecture capital. Let Senior Fan lead the way." Of course. Fan Yi's face lit up with joy when he saw that Zhuoan had agreed. He urged the white airship to fly towards the prefecture capital. Zhuoan naturally followed behind leisurely. Since someone had taken the initiative to show him the way, Zhuoan was more than happy to oblige. "Father, why are you so polite to that young man?" The man in green beside Fan Yi on the white airship in front of them asked curiously. As soon as the man in green said this, the other 7 young men gathered their gazes on Fan Yi. They also had the same puzzled look on their faces. That young man is not simple. I can actually feel a trace of threat from him. I suspect that he is a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, Fan Yi said with a serious expression. What? A half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert? How can he reach the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm at such a young age? Chapter 338. Old Friend Swoosh. Swoosh. 2 airships, one white and one green, flew into the capital one after the other. After entering the capital, Zhuoan and the others discovered that the capital was much larger than they had imagined. The streets were packed with people, and not a single one of them was an ordinary person. All of them were powerful cultivators, and there was no lack of Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators who were deliberately releasing their auras. The auras of Zhuoan and the others had been concealed by a secret technique on the way to the capital. This was the main reason why Fan Yi and the others could not see through Zhuoan and the others. After all, Zhuoan was a perfected Grade 3 Arcana Master, so he naturally had many secret techniques to conceal his aura. The capital lives up to its name. Just on the street we're on, there are 3 powerful auras that are unique to Ultimate Emperor Realm experts. Jiu Yutian couldn't help but sigh as he felt the undisguised powerful auras on the street. Zhuoan nodded in agreement. After all, the capital was the largest city in Muqin County, and the number of Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators there was extremely terrifying. Of course, this was only a relative term. That's right. The capital is a treasure trove of outstanding people. Because the Origin Chi Tower is located in the capital, the concentration of Origin Chi in the capital is hundreds of times higher than in other places. This is also the reason why there are so many more experts in the capital than in other places. Fan Yi, who was on the white airship, also sighed with emotion. Feeling the baptism of the rich Origin Chi around him, Zhuoan could not help but comfortably stretch his waist. Fan Yi was right. The Origin Chi in the capital was indeed very rich. Even if Zhuoan did not deliberately circulate his meridians to cultivate, the Origin Chi in the surroundings would still continuously enter his body and strengthen the Origin Chi in his meridians. Little friend Zhuoan, look over there. That's the pillar of the capital, the Origin Chi Tower. It is precisely because of this Vitality Tower that the Commandery capital can stand above all other cities and become the well-deserved #1 city in Muqin Commandery. Fan Yi pointed to the distance and introduced with a rather solemn expression. Following the direction that Fan Yi pointed, Zhuoan and the others also saw that at the center of the county, there was a huge tower that looked like a pillar that supported the heavens. The base of the tower covered an extremely vast area, at least several thousand feet in area. Outside the tower, there was a layer of transparent barrier that was faintly discernible. Obviously, there was an extremely powerful restrictive spell set up around the tower. That's the Essence Tower. It's truly spectacular. I never expected that the hundreds of thousands of geniuses in Muqin County would be competing in such a giant tower. I wonder what kind of spectacular sight it will be when the battle for the Yuan Chi Tower begins. Gazing at the giant tower in the distance, Zhuoan could not help but exclaim in awe. It will inevitably be a grand spectacle, but it will also be an extremely tragic life and death competition. The Yuan Qi Tower competition itself is an extremely cruel competition for geniuses. Fan Yi shook his head and sighed with emotion. Senior Fan, I wonder how the host, the House of Marquis Qin, will arrange the representatives of the cities. Zhuowen suddenly turned his head and asked Fan Yi. Fan Yi was slightly startled, but then he smiled and said, "Haha, the representatives of our cities have already been arranged. You see, isn't there a layer of restrictive spell within a few thousand feet of the origin Qi Tower? Inside the restrictive spell, there are countless pavilions and pagodas. Those pavilions and pagodas are specially designed for the representatives of our cities to live in. As long as you take the invitation letter issued by the House of Marquis Qin and hand it to the gatekeeper of the restrictive spell, the gatekeeper will naturally assign you to your respective areas." Invitation letter? Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned and looked at Jiu Yutian behind him. He had never heard of this so-called invitation letter. Seeing Zhuowen looking at him, Jiu Yutian gently came behind Zhuowen and explained in a low voice, "Zhuowen, you don't have to worry. The invitation letter is with me. Last time, I went to the prefecture capital with Master Karaki because of this invitation letter." Zhuowen heard this and nodded slightly. Since Jiu Yutian had the invitation letter, he was not worried. "We're almost at the entrance of the restrictive spell. Let's go down quickly." Fan Yi suddenly opened his mouth and said. He steered the flying boat under his feet and slowly landed on a spacious square below. At the end of the square, there was a huge stone door that was dozens of feet wide. 2 heavily armored soldiers were standing in front of the stone door. Zhuowen also followed Fan Yi and controlled the Qingfan boat to land on an open space in the square. After the 4 of them alighted, Zhuowen waved his right hand and put the Qingfan boat into his Chenkuan bag. Zhuowen's behavior also attracted the attention of Fan Yi and the others. They did not expect that the precious advanced flying spiritual treasure was not controlled by Jiu Yutian, but by Zhuowen, the youngest of the 4 of them. Fan Yi and the others could not help but think highly of him. At this time, there were not many people in the square. Obviously, Zhuowen and Fan Yi had arrived much earlier than the others. "Little friend Zhuowen, let's also enter the restrictive spell. For the remaining 2 months, we basically have to live in the attics within the restrictive spell. This is the rule issued by the House of Marquis Qin." Fan Yi smiled at Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded slightly. When he was about to go to the stone gate at the end of the square with Fan Yi, a clear voice suddenly sounded from behind. "Zhuowen, is it really you?" A clear and somewhat charming voice rang out, and it immediately attracted the attention of many people in the square. Zhuowen and the others also stopped because of this shout, and then they abruptly turned around. At the entrance of the square, a dozen figures were slowly walking over. The most conspicuous one among them was the sack-clothed old man who was walking at the front. Although the old man had a head of silver hair, his face was extremely rosy, like a baby's face. He was extremely energetic. What attracted Zhuowen's attention was not the old man's appearance, but the powerful aura that was faintly emitted from the old man's body. This aura even caused the surrounding air to boil. Heavens! It's actually an ultimate emperor stage expert. Behind Zhuowen, Fan Yi's eyes suddenly widened as he involuntarily exclaimed. The other 8 juniors from Green Dragon City also looked at the old man who was slowly walking over with astonishment. Fan Yi's pupils shrank as he looked at Zhuowen in front of him. He could not understand this young man in front of him. He did not expect this young man to be acquainted with an ultimate emperor stage expert in the province. Behind this old man, there were 3 beautiful figures that were rather eye-catching. As he looked at these 3 beautiful figures, the corners of Zhuowen's mouth involuntarily revealed a smile. These 3 people were actually the 3 Lin sisters that Zhuowen had met before heading to the ancient cave mansion. They were Lin Meiyu, Lin Chaiyu and Lin Xiaoyu. The 3 women were extremely beautiful. Many people in the square were stunned when they saw the 3 sisters. At this moment, the 3 women were staring straight at Zhuowen with a look of pleasant surprise on their faces. Zhuowen had saved their lives and they naturally remembered this kindness. Now that they saw Zhuowen in the square, they were naturally wild with joy. Very quickly, the old man in the lead brought the 3 sisters over to Zhuowen and the others. "You are Zhuowen?" The leading elder arrived in front of Zhuo Wen. His eyes stared straight at Zhuo Wen as he spoke with a faint smile. This junior is indeed Zhuo Wen. Greetings, senior. The old man in front of him was an ultimate emperor stage expert. Zhuo Wen did not dare to slight him in the slightest. No need to be so polite. I've heard Lin Meiyu and the other two girls often talk about you, so this old man has some impression of you. 2 years ago, you were able to save Lin Meiyu and the other two from the hands of the Huang family. Therefore, you are a friend of our Lin family. The old man patted Zhuo Wen's shoulder rather straightforwardly and said with a hearty laugh. Zhuo Wen, he is the head of our Lin family and also our grandfather. His name is Lin Yi. He's old and frivolous, so you don't have to pay too much attention to him. I believe that you are also participating in the Yuan-Chi Tower battle this time. However, you have to be careful. The participants are all powerful geniuses. The rather steady Lin Meiyu suddenly said to Zhuo Wen. Oh, that's right. Can you give me the teleportation token that wastrel Lin Xuanzhong gave me back then? Of course, I won't take it back by force, but I'll trade for it. I'll use a high-grade spirit treasure to exchange for that teleportation token. How about that? Lin Yi suddenly rubbed his hands together and laughed dryly at Zhuo Wen. Grandfather, how could you? The originally silent Lin Chai-yu suddenly stamped her foot and said somewhat angrily to Lin Yi. Second girl, don't be angry. I have a great use for the teleportation token. Didn't I say that I will use a high-grade soul treasure to exchange for it? After all, the teleportation token is not very useful to this little fellow. Moreover, it is only a middle-grade soul treasure. Exchanging it for a high-grade soul treasure is actually a profit for this little fellow. Lin Yi suddenly said with a glare. Zhuo Wen was startled and immediately smiled. Since senior wants the teleportation token, this junior will naturally take it out. As he spoke, Zhuo Wen took out a jade token from his Chenkuan bag. It was the teleportation token that Lin Xuanzhong had given him back then. This teleportation token was only a middle-grade soul treasure. To the current Zhuo Wen, it was indeed not very useful. It would be better to exchange it for a high-grade soul treasure with Lin Yi. Kid. This old man likes your straightforward personality. Seeing that Zhuo Wen took out the teleportation token so straightforwardly, Lin Yi immediately smiled and took the token. He then took out a blue long sword from his Chenkuan bag and said, "This long sword is called the Mystic Water Sword. It is a high-grade low-grade soul treasure. Its attack is quite extraordinary. Use this to exchange for your teleportation token." After receiving the Mystic Water Sword and feeling the power from the sword, Zhuo Wen nodded slightly and asked Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying behind him, "Which one of you is good at using swords?" Ji Yuxin is better. My attack style is barehanded close combat. Hu Wuying shook his head slightly and said to Ji Yuxin. In that case, this Mystic Water Sword will be given to Ji Yuxin. Nodding slightly, Zhuo Wen decisively handed the Mystic Water Sword to Ji Yuxin. After all, he already had a suitable high-grade soul treasure. This Mystic Water Sword was not very useful to him. After receiving the Mystic Water Sword, Ji Yuxin could not help but be stunned. Feeling the cold touch from the sword hilt, he asked in disbelief, "Zhuo Wen, you really intend to give this Mystic Water Sword to me?" "Yes." Zhuo Wen nodded as a matter of course. Chapter 339. VIP Area. Ji Yuxin's handsome face was filled with excitement as he held the Blackwater sword in his hand. He bowed deeply to Zhuo Wen and said, "Brother Zhuo Wen, I, Ji Yuxin, owe you a big favor this time." Ji Yu Tian, who was beside Ji Yuxin, also looked at Zhuo Wen with gratitude. Although he didn't say anything, he bowed along with Ji Yuxin. "Brother Ji Yuxin, you don't have to be so polite. After all, we are all representatives of Rattan Armor City. If your strength increases, our chances of winning the battle for the Tower of Vitality will increase." Zhuo Wen waved his hand and smiled. Lin Yi was also surprised by Zhuo Wen's actions. Although the Blackwater sword was only a high-rank low-rank spirit treasure, it was still a high-rank spirit treasure. Its value was quite precious. Giving it away like this made Lin Yi quite surprised. Looks like this little guy doesn't care about the Blackwater sword at all. I'm afraid that Zhuowen has even more powerful spirit treasures on him. Lin Yi looked deeply at Zhuowen as he muttered to himself. Little friend Zhuowen, I'm sure you guys are also planning to enter the VIP area. Why don't we go in together? Lin Yi suddenly laughed and pointed at the thousands of miles of restriction around the Tower of Vitality. So that area is called the VIP area. That's fine too. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen planned to follow Lin Yi and the others through the stone door at the end of the square. However, just as Zhuowen was about to take a step, his brows furrowed as he looked at the distant horizon. Zhuowen, what's wrong? Zhuowen's sudden stop attracted the attention of Ji Yuxin and the others. Ji Yutian couldn't help but ask. Wait a moment, I've met an acquaintance. Zhuowen shook his head. His eyes were still staring at the sky as he spoke with a slight smile. He could sense a couple of extremely familiar auras rushing over from the horizon. In the blink of an eye, they landed in the middle of the square. This was a team of more than 10 people, and at the front of the team were 2 middle-aged men with extraordinary bearings. One of them was sturdy and wore a purple robe, and there was a trace of dominance between his brows. The other was wearing a grey robe and was slightly shorter, but the aura on his body was much more terrifying than that of the purple-robed man. As soon as the team landed in the center of the square, it immediately attracted the attention of many people in the square. Everyone looked at the flag on the flying boat in awe. The pattern on the flag was a broken rock, which looked quite lifelike. Of course, it wasn't the flag that made everyone look at them in awe, but the meaning behind the flag. This team was the representative of a super city. It's actually the super city of Broken Rock City. Broken Rock City's strength is one of the best among all the super cities. Moreover, the 2 people leading the group in front of us, one of them is the City Lord, Ouyang Yuntu. He's a genuine second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. The other person is the current strongest person in Broken Rock City, Qiu Chou. It is said that he has already reached the 4th wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm. Fan Yi, who was standing at the side, looked at the group of people from Broken Rock City in the center of the square and couldn't help but whisper in awe. Lin Yi, who was leading a large group of people, also frowned slightly. He didn't expect Broken Rock City to be so powerful. Moreover, Qiu Chou, who was standing beside Ouyang Yuntu, gave him an unfathomable feeling. It was likely that Qiu Chou was just as the rumors said. He was already a 4th wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. I really didn't expect that Qiu Chou, who had disappeared for 10 years, would actually reappear. Moreover, his strength has soared to the 4th wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm. It seems that Broken Rock City's strength has increased again. Although it can't be compared to the real super cities, it's not too far off. Lin Yi sighed slightly. The strength of Broken Rock City was no weaker than the Lin family. In fact, its high-end strength was even stronger than the Lin family's. This made Lin Yi quite wary of the people from Broken Rock City. Just as the crowd was discussing the people from Broken Rock City who had just appeared, a young man suddenly walked slowly towards the team from Broken Rock City. His face was filled with a casual and undisciplined expression. Brother Zhuowen, what are you doing? Why are you walking towards the team from Broken Rock City? Fan Yi suddenly asked in a low voice, somewhat puzzled. Hearing this, even Lin Yi and the rest of the Lin family members were filled with doubts. Could it be that Zhuowen was going to find trouble with them? While everyone was filled with doubts, Ji Yutian, Ji Yuxin, and the rest appeared to be rather calm. Zhuowen had already told them about his relationship with the governor of Broken Rock City. At this moment, they weren't worried about Zhuowen at all. Under the puzzled gazes of the crowd, after the ordinary-looking young man walked into the team from Broken Rock City, the governor of Broken Rock City, Ouyang Yuntu, and the unfathomable Qiu Chou actually revealed excited expressions. Then, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, they gave Zhuowen a rather intimate bear hug. This. Brother Zhuowen actually knows the governor of Broken Rock City and the extremely powerful Qiu Chou. When he saw Zhuowen, Ouyang Yuntu, and Qiu Chou hug, Fan Yi's mind went blank and he exclaimed in disbelief. What was the identity of this young man in front of him? First, he had some connections with the Lin family, one of the 5 great families in the prefecture capital. Now, even the governor of Broken Rock City and the #1 expert, Cho, had such a warm attitude towards him. Could it be that this young man's identity was really extraordinary? Fan Yi looked at Zhuowen's figure not far away, his eyes suddenly filled with reverence. In his heart, he had already secretly regarded Zhuowen as an extremely extraordinary person. Lin Yi, Lin Meiyu, and the rest were also somewhat surprised as they looked at the young man who was mingling with the team from Broken Rock City. Among them, Lin Yi couldn't help but whisper, "It seems that this young man's connections are quite good." The governor of Broken Rock City, Ouyang Yuntu, and Cho, are actually so warm towards him. The Lin Meiyu and her sister's gazes were also rather complicated as they stared blankly at the young man in the distance. They didn't expect that in just 2 years, Zhuowen had become more and more unfathomable. The governor of a super city had such a different attitude towards the young man. It was obvious that Zhuowen was not as simple as he seemed on the surface. What a coincidence. We actually met Brother Zhuowen on our way to the prefecture capital today. It seems that Brother Zhuowen and our Broken Rock City are quite fated. In the team from Broken Rock City, Ouyang Hanxian smiled as he looked at Zhuowen in front of him. Brother Hanxian, it seems that the 9 Extreme Emperor Origin Pool has a significant effect on you. You have actually broken through to the Ultimate Emperor stage. Let me congratulate you in advance. Looking at the young man in white in front of him and feeling the powerful aura on his body, Zhuowen couldn't help but smile. This is all thanks to Brother Zhuowen's help. Otherwise, the 9 Extreme Emperor Origin Pool might not belong to our Broken Rock City. Moreover, it would be impossible for me to break through to the Ultimate Emperor stage in such a short time. Ouyang Hanxian waved his hand slightly. After catching up with the people from Broken Rock City, Zhuowen led the people from Broken Rock City to Lin Yi, Jiu Tian, and the others who were waiting for him in front. When the few teams gathered, it was naturally inevitable for them to exchange greetings. Among them, Fan Yi and the others who represented Green Dragon City were particularly reserved. After all, whether it was Broken Rock City or the Lin family of the prefecture capital, they were not forces on the same level as their small high-class city. Moreover, Rattan Armor City represented by Zhuowen gave Fan Yi a sense of mystery. Therefore, he naturally thought that his team was the weakest among the 4 teams. Therefore, his behavior became rather timid. The 4 teams came together in front of the stone door at the end of the square and handed over their invitation letters. The guards on both sides of the stone door naturally recognized the representatives of the 2 rather powerful forces, Broken Rock City and the Lin family. When they checked the invitation letters, they were naturally very polite and careful, afraid that they would make the lords in front of them unhappy. Broken Rock City, a super city. Lords, please take this token and go to the Heaven Stage loft to choose a room. The guard politely took out a pitch-black token with the word Heaven carved on it. Fan Yi had also mentioned the distribution of the VIP area to Zhuowen. It was divided into 4 major areas: the Heaven Stage, the Earth Stage, the Human Stage, and the Mortal Stage. Each area had a corresponding loft. Among them, the Heaven Stage loft was the most luxurious and comfortable loft. Its area was the most spacious and comfortable. It was specially used to receive the upper-class forces of the super cities and the prefecture capital. The Earth Stage loft was second and was specially provided for the high-class cities. The Human Stage loft was for the middle-class cities. The Mortal Stage loft had the worst living conditions and was naturally allocated to the low-class cities. The Lin family was one of the 5 great families in the prefecture capital. Its influence was also quite powerful. Naturally, it also received a Heaven Stage token. Green Dragon City, a high-class city. Take this Earth Stage token and you can go to the Earth Stage loft area to choose a room. The guard looked at Fan Yi and the rest in surprise. In his opinion, the super cities and the Lin family were much more powerful than the high-class cities. This small high-class city was actually able to follow behind the 2 great forces. It seemed that the Green Dragon City was not weak. Therefore, the guard was very polite to them. Of course, this kind of politeness could not be compared to the treatment given to the Broken Rock City and the Lin family. Fan Yi and the rest naturally noticed the expression on the guard's face. However, they did not feel anything strange in their hearts. They also admitted that their influence was naturally not comparable to the two great forces of the Broken Rock City and the Lin family. After receiving the token, Fan Yi stared at Zhuowen and the rest who took out the invitation letter. In his opinion, Zhuowen was really too mysterious. He was afraid that there must be an extremely powerful supercity behind him. That supercity might even be more powerful than Broken Rock City. Otherwise, the governor of Broken Rock City would not be so polite to Zhuowen. After taking out the invitation letter, Jiu Tian handed it to the guard. The guard was very polite. After all, Zhuowen and the rest were talking and laughing with the Broken Rock City and the Lin family. The guard naturally thought that Zhuowen and the rest had a powerful background. However, when the guard looked at the invitation letter, he was suddenly stunned. He rubbed his eyes and looked at it again. Finally, he looked at Zhuowen and the rest with a strange expression and said, "Rattan Armor City, a low-class city. Take this mortal stage token and you can go to the mortal stage loft to choose a room." Chapter 340. The people of Green Dragon City watched as Zhuowen and the others calmly accepted the mortal level token. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Zhuowen and the others, who had always been mysterious and powerful in their eyes, were only from a low-level city. Their minds went blank. "Little friend Zhuowen, are you really from a low-level city?" Fan Yi laughed dryly as he looked at Zhuowen. He couldn't believe that the young man in front of him, who was on good terms with Broken Rock City's mayor, Ouyang Yuntu, and the powerful Qiu Chou, was only from a low-level city. Fan Yi had also sensed that Zhuowen was a great threat to him. It was obvious that the young man in front of him was also very powerful. With such terrifying connections and powerful strength, and at such a young age, Fan Yi found it hard to imagine that a low-level city could cultivate such a monstrous character. Looking at the indescribably shocked crowd from Green Dragon City, Zhuowen knew that they had misunderstood. He nodded slightly and said, "Senior Fan, our Rattan Armor City is indeed a low-grade city. Mayor Ouyang and Master Lin Yi both know this." Ouyang Yuntu and the others naturally knew Zhuowen's identity very well. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had heard it from the three sisters. Therefore, when Zhuowen admitted that he was from a low-level city, the two of them weren't surprised at all. Fan Yi cautiously glanced at the expressions of Ouyang Yuntu and Lin Yi behind him. Naturally, he found that the two of them didn't seem surprised at all. Obviously, they already knew about Zhuowen's identity. However, because of this, Fan Yi was even more surprised. If Zhuowen was a genius from a great power, then it was normal for Ouyang Yuntu to be so friendly towards him. However, Zhuowen just so happened to come from a low-level city. For such a youth without any background to be able to make Ouyang Yuntu and the others so courteous and enthusiastic was truly too unusual. In other words, this seemingly ordinary youth in front of them very likely had a side that made Ouyang Yuntu and the others extremely fearful. "Zhuowen, why don't you move Rattan Armor City to the Sky Pavilion? I, Ouyang Yuntu, still have some face in the house of Marquis Qin. The living conditions in the Mortal Pavilion are extremely bad. I'm afraid you won't be able to get used to it." Ouyang Yuntu suddenly smiled and invited Zhuowen. Ouyang is right. The conditions of the Mortal Pavilion are indeed very poor. Moving to the Heaven Pavilion is a wise choice. With Ouyang and this old man's face, the house of Marquis Qin will agree. Qiu Chou nodded and said. Lin Yi looked at Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou with some surprise. He felt that these two were overly friendly towards Zhuowen. After all, these two were above the Ultimate Emperor realm, and Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators were very proud and aloof. It was the first time he had seen them treat a junior so warmly. However, Zhuowen shook his head slightly and said, "Thank you for your kindness, seniors. After all, our Rattan Armor City is only a low-level city. If we rashly move to the Heaven Pavilion, I'm afraid it will be used against us. Moreover, I don't want to cause trouble for you two seniors, so we've decided to move to the Mortal Pavilion." Zhuowen still had quite a bit of conflict with Lu Yuanhua. If he moved to the Heaven Pavilion in such a high-profile manner, wouldn't it quickly attract Lu Yuanhua's attention? At that time, he would really be in trouble. It was better to stay in the Mortal Pavilion. It would be more hidden. Since you've decided, we won't force you. However, you have to do your best in the Origin Chi Tower battle. This old man believes that with your skills, you will definitely perform well in the Origin Chi Tower. Seeing Zhuoan refuse, Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou didn't force him. They chatted with Zhuoan for a while longer before leading the group through the stone door and towards the Heaven Pavilion. After the group from Broken Rock City left, the Lin family didn't stay for long. They bid farewell to Zhuoan and hurriedly entered the stone door. Senior Fan, we're also going in. We'll take our leave first. Looking at Fan Yi and the others in front of him with complicated expressions, Zhuoan cupped his hands and led Jiu Tian and the others through the stone door. Fan Yi sighed softly as he watched the 4 figures disappear behind the stone door. He said, "It is really unexpected that young friend Zhuowen is only from a low-grade city. It seems that I have misjudged him back then. When we were on the flying boat, I saw that there were only 4 of them. I already suspected that they didn't have a high background. After all, the more powerful a faction is, the more spots it should have. Since there were only 4 of them, they obviously met the quota of a low-level city. These 4 lowly guys have been deceiving us from the beginning. They really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." The green-clothed man beside Fan Yi looked at Zhuowen's group of 4 with contempt. He was in a bad mood. After all, they had overestimated the status of Zhuowen's group from the beginning. It was to the extent that they were respectful and timid in front of Zhuowen's group. Now that they thought that the people they were respectful to were only lowly commoners from a low-level city, the other 8 people, including the green-clothed man, were in a bad mood. They couldn't help but curse and ridicule. "Shut up!" Fan Yi shouted in a low voice. He looked coldly at the 8 people who were cursing in front of him. "Do you think that Zhuowen is an ordinary warrior to be able to obtain the appreciation and concern of the city lord of a supercity? Before you curse, use your brains. Zhuowen is very strong. So strong that even existences like Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou want to rope him in. So this old man warns you not to cause trouble for Zhuowen. If I find out, this old man will clean up the house." Fan Yi's shout suddenly suppressed the 8 people in front of him. The 8 people, led by the green-clothed man, lowered their heads and didn't dare to say a word. As soon as they entered the stone door, Zhuowen and the others discovered that the yuan qi within the restriction was much denser than the outside world. Every breath they took in here was as comfortable as if they had been reborn. The yuan qi inside the restriction is much denser than the other places in the province. It seems that the yuan qi tower is worthy of its reputation. It can actually gather so much yuan qi. Gently inhaling the yuan qi around him, Zhuowen couldn't help but laugh. The Yuan Qi Tower was built by an ancient almighty. It is naturally extraordinary. The closer you get to the Yuan Qi Tower, the more terrifying the Yuan Qi is. The Yuan Qi inside the Yuan Qi Tower is even more terrifying. It is said that the Yuan Qi inside the tower is so dense that it is almost liquid. You only need to wave your hand in the air and the surrounding Yuan Qi will turn into liquid. That is truly terrifying. Jiu Tian nodded slightly and said with a smile. When he heard this, Zhuowen's gaze grew even more expectant. No wonder so many geniuses who had participated in the Yuan Energy Tower battle were able to advance by leaps and bounds. It was likely that the environment within the Yuan Energy Tower was inseparable from the reason why so many geniuses were able to survive. Let's go. The mundane pavilion is located in the outermost area of the Yuan Qi Tower. It is the place where the Yuan Qi is the thinnest. Jiu Tian pointed at the somewhat uneven and even dilapidated buildings in front of them and slowly walked in that direction. The mundane stage loft was located on a rather vast flat ground. It occupied the narrowest area of the 4 areas, and the Yuan Qi concentration was also the thinnest. What made Zhuowen and the others even more speechless was that the buildings in the mundane stage loft area were basically dilapidated. From afar, it looked like a sloppy slum. Seeing the dilapidated state of the mundane pavilion, Zhuowen and the others couldn't help but frown. This so-called mundane pavilion was even worse than they had imagined. Ari. The treatment in a low-level city is really bad. Could it be that other mid-level and high-level cities are considered cities, But our low-level city isn't a city. Is this kind of dilapidated pavilion used to send away beggars? Ji Yushin coldly snorted and said with a little displeasure. No matter where it is, low-level cities are at the bottom of the hierarchy. The fact that the House of Marquis Qin can separate an area for us low-level city representatives is already not bad. Shin you don't have to complain. We are only temporarily staying for 2 months. Jiu Tian shook his head and laughed involuntarily. I'm just complaining a little. Ji Yushin scratched his head and laughed dryly. As they spoke, the 4 of them also entered the mundane pavilion area. At this time, there were already many cultivators coming in and out of this area. These cultivators were basically gathered in groups of 2s and 3s. Obviously, like Zhuoan and the others, they were all representatives of low-level cities. There were basically no more than 4 people in each area. In this mundane pavilion area, Zhuoan and the others quickly chose a room that looked quite good. Of course, this was only relatively good. Every room in the pavilion had restrictions. These restrictions weren't strong, but they were comparable to the peak of the Heavenly King realm. Generally, cultivators in low-level cities who could reach the Heavenly King realm were so rare that they could be counted on one hand, let alone those who were at the peak of the Heavenly King realm. Of course, abnormal monsters like Zhuoan were naturally an exception. After choosing their rooms, the 4 of them quietly stayed in their respective rooms and began to silently absorb the rich yuan qi in this area, hoping to make a breakthrough in the remaining 2 months. While Zhuoan and the others stayed in the mundane pavilion, silently cultivating and waiting for the Yuan Qi Tower battle in 2 months, LV Yongsheng and Lu Yuanhua were sitting opposite each other in a luxurious pavilion in the House of Marquis Qin not far from the Yuan Qi Tower. Second brother, General Fei Long is dead. He died in Rattan Armor City. LV Yongsheng looked at Lu Yuanhua and said with a calm expression. What? General Fei Long is dead? Who killed him? Could it be that Zhuoan? Lu Yuanhua's eyes narrowed as he said with a solemn expression. He was well aware of General Fei Long's strength. Although the former was only at the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm, his strength could be considered to be at the peak of the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. Even an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator wouldn't be able to kill him, but now he was dead. Moreover, he died in Rattan Armor City. Whether or not it was Zhuoan who killed him, I'm not sure. However, it should be related to that Zhuoan. LV Yongsheng's eyes darkened slightly as he said. Now that the Yuan Qi Tower battle is about to begin, Rattan Armor City will definitely send Zhuoan. It seems that I need to find out where Rattan Armor City's residence is. I want to see just how much that Zhuoan has improved in 2 years. Lu Yuanhua suddenly slapped the armrest of his chair as he coldly snorted. Third brother, you can't casually attack in the VIP area. If the old guys in the mansion find out, I'm afraid that even father won't be able to protect you. LV Yongsheng frowned as he said. Second brother, don't worry, I'm not a reckless person. I'm only going to probe. If there's no chance, I naturally won't attack. There will be plenty of opportunities after we enter the Yuan Qi Tower. However, if there's a chance, I won't let it go. The Ultimate Essence. Chapter 341. In the north of the provincial capital, there was an enormous palace on top of a towering mountain. This palace was the residence of one of the 5 major factions in the provincial capital, the Jade Lady Astral Court. In a pavilion in the palace, which was filled with starlight, a beautiful woman in a veil held a small piece of paper in her hand and muttered, "It seems that Zhuoan has also come to the provincial capital. I wonder how strong he will be in 2 years." Senior Sister Qing Lian. At this moment, a fiery red figure suddenly entered the pavilion. It was a young girl in a fiery red dress. At this moment, the young girl's face was full of liveliness. She skipped over to the veiled woman's side and very naturally held the veiled woman's arm. Junior Sister Qing Lian, what brings you here today? The veiled woman was Qing Lian, who had some friendship with Zhuoan in the ancient cavern. She was also a genius of the Jade Lady Astral Court. Hee. I heard that you broke through to the Ultimate Emperor stage yesterday, so I came here to congratulate you. I originally thought that I would break through before you, but it seems that I am still far behind you." The veiled woman curled her lips and teased. Qing Lian looked at the pretty face of the veiled woman in front of her and smiled gently. She patted the girl's head and said, "Junior sister Qing Lian, are you still not satisfied? You are only 19 years old this year. It is already very impressive that you have reached the ultimate emperor stage at such a young age. Your senior sister is far from being able to compare to you at your age." The corner of the Red Lotus young lady's mouth curled when she heard Qing Lian's praise. A joyous smile blossomed on her pretty face. However, when the Red Lotus saw that Qing Lian was packing her things, she asked uncertainly, "Senior, are you going out?" "Yes. I am going to the VIP area." Qing Lian smiled and said. "VIP area? Our Jade Lady Astral Court is one of the 5 major factions in the provincial capital. We don't have to stay in the VIP area. Even the House of Marquis Qin does not have the power to force us to stay in the Jade Lady Astral Court. Senior sister, why are you going there?" Qing Lian's pretty face was filled with doubt. "I am not going to stay in the VIP area. I am going there to find someone." After packing, Qing Lian walked out of the pavilion. Looking at Qing Lian's departing figure, Qing Lian's eyes flashed. She followed Qing Lian and said, "Our pure senior sister Qing Lian is also looking for a man." "Hehe, junior sister, I also want to see who has made you go there personally." Qing Lian's pretty face blushed when she heard Qing's words. Qing Lian rolled her eyes and said, "Junior sister, don't say that. The person I'm looking for is just an ordinary friend of mine. Moreover, you should have heard of him before. He's the Zhuo Wen that I mentioned before. It's that guy. I heard that he's just a child of a small family from a low-level city. Senior sister, are you really going there to ask him to help our Jade Lady Star Court? He is just a nobody in a low-level city. Does he really have the ability to help us?" Qing Lian frowned. "Don't underestimate that guy. Lu Yuanhua also suffered a great loss at his hand. Moreover, he has an Earth-rank spirit treasure in the ancient cavern mansion. That Earth-rank spirit treasure alone is enough for us to rope him in." Qing Lian said seriously. "What a lucky guy. He has an Earth-rank spirit treasure. But if his strength is too weak, even if he has an Earth-rank spirit treasure, it will be a waste." Qing Lian curled her lips and muttered to herself. In her heart, she disapproved of Zhuowen, whom Qing Lian admired so much. In an inconspicuous room in the dilapidated mortal pavilion, Lu Yuanhua sat on the main seat. He looked around at the dilapidated environment and frowned. "Third Prince, I am the manager of the mortal pavilion, Du Yang. Do you need something from me?" A middle-aged man knelt in front of Lu Yuanhua. He looked at Lu Yuanhua with reverence. Du Yang was a man with gloomy eyes. He wore grey linen robes, and judging from his aura, he was roughly a half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator. However, his aura was much weaker than an ordinary half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator. He had probably relied on external items to forcefully raise his cultivation to the half-step ultimate emperor realm. A weak half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator like Du Yang could be easily defeated by a slightly stronger half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator. As for General Fei Long, who was at the peak of the half-step ultimate emperor realm, he could even escape from a first-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. He only needed one move to annihilate Du Yang. "Help me check if there are any representatives from Tengjiao City in the mortal level loft. If there are, give me the location." LV Yuanhua glanced at Du Yang below with some disdain as he coldly ordered. Many cultivators looked down on cultivators like Du Yang, who had relied on external help to reach the half-step ultimate emperor realm. Lu Yuanhua naturally looked down on Du Yang as well. If it weren't for the fact that Du Yang was the manager of the mortal pavilion, he wouldn't even bother with a servant like him. Du Yang was startled when he heard this. Seeing Lu Yuanhua's unfriendly expression, Du Yang guessed that there were some grievances between Vine Armor City and the Third Prince. Without the slightest hesitation, Du Yang hurriedly took out a golden page from his Chenkuan bag. On the surface of this page, there were densely packed words. Moreover, these words would constantly roll and flow with the passage of time. Clearly, this was a kind of spirit treasure that specialized in recording information. Du Yang's face lit up with joy after he checked the page. Found it. Vine Armor City is in room 586 on the 5th floor of the Mortal Pavilion. Lu Yuanhua's eyes lit up as he hurriedly said, "Take me to room 586 immediately." Although Du Yang was extremely weak, his ability to read people's expressions was extremely powerful. Previously, he saw that LV Yuanhua's expression was unfriendly and gloomy. Now, after hearing the news about Tingjiao City, his expression became much more hurried. It was very obvious that Tingjiao City and LV Yuanhua had an unusual grudge. The Mortal Pavilion only housed the representatives of low-level cities. These low-level cities were extremely low in status and were extremely weak. He didn't think that a noble heir like Lu Yuanhua would travel thousands of miles to find Vine Armor City for any good reason. When he thought of this, Du Yang's eyes lit up. He knew that his chance had come. He knew very well that his talent wasn't enough. Even his ascension to the half-step ultimate emperor realm was forced by medicine. If he didn't encounter a fortuitous encounter, he would never be able to reach the ultimate emperor realm in his lifetime. However, if he could rely on Lu Yuanhua and receive his attention, his status in the house of Marquis Qin would definitely rise even if he couldn't reach the ultimate emperor realm. As he planned in his heart, Du Yang carefully asked Lu Yuanhua, "Sir, do you have any grudges against Vine Armor City? If you do, I can give you some advice and help you deal with any future problems." Lu Yuanhua was originally a bit impatient, but after hearing Du Yang's words, he calmed down. He had come this time to test Zhuoan. Of course, if he could get rid of Zhuoan first, he would be more than happy to do so. However, there were many restrictions in the VIP area. Even as the heir of the house of Marquis Qin, he couldn't casually make a move in the VIP area. If he violated the rules, he was afraid that some of the old fellows in the house of Marquis Qin would target him. Du Yang was the manager of the Mortal Pavilion. Perhaps he had a way to get rid of Zhuoan from Vine Armor City. After thinking for a while, Lu Yuanhua said indifferently, "As the manager of the Mortal Pavilion, you should know many rules. If I want to get rid of the representative of Vine Armor City without anyone knowing, is there any way to do so? If you can give me a good suggestion, I don't mind giving you a promotion." When Du Yang heard this, a trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. He knew that his chance had come. He immediately smiled and said, "It is almost impossible to get rid of Vine Armor City without anyone knowing. However, if you change the method, I can still get rid of all the representatives of Vine Armor City legitimately." "Oh, what good method do you have?" When Lu Yuanhua heard that there was hope, a trace of joy appeared on his face and he quickly asked. Although killing is not allowed in the VIP area, there are always exceptions. In the past, the representatives of the cities who didn't follow the rules in the VIP area were basically handed over to the managers of the respective areas to deal with. If Sir wants to deal with the representative of Vine Armor City, you only need to make the representative break the rules here first. When the time comes, we will have sufficient reason and authority to arrest him. When the time comes, won't it be up to Sir to deal with him?" Du Yang laughed coldly. When Lu Yuanhua heard this, his eyes lit up and he continued to say, "That makes sense. However, how can we make Vine Armor City break the rules? Now that the battle for the Vitality Tower is approaching, I'm afraid that many of the city representatives are busy training in seclusion. If they don't take the initiative to break the rules, we can naturally create a trap and make them obediently step into it. The specific method is like this." As he spoke, Du Yang cautiously transmitted his voice to Lu Yuanhua and described the plan he had thought of. The more Lu Yuanhua heard, the more joy on his face became. He laughed and said, "Good plan, Du Yang. If you can really help me capture the representative of Vine Armor City, I will definitely not treat you unfairly." When Du Yang heard this, he quickly knelt on the ground and said with a face full of joy, "Thank you, sir. I will definitely do this well. When the time comes, just wait for my good news. I will go and arrange it now." Go, but do it secretly. Don't let anyone discover any loopholes, understood?" Nodding slightly, Lu Yuanhua coldly warned. Du Yang's heart trembled and he quickly said, "Rest assured, sir. I will definitely do it flawlessly." Chapter 342. Conflict in a room within the mundane pavilion, a youth was sitting cross-legged on a praying mat, silently absorbing the rich yuan qi around him. The yuan qi in the air was like a whirlpool as it rapidly entered the youth's body. Huff! The youth exhaled deeply and slowly opened his eyes. However, he shook his head and muttered to himself, "Looks like I'm still too greedy. I've just broken through to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm and I'm already trying to break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm. Kid. The Ultimate Emperor realm isn't that easy to break through. Although your body contains the power of the world within the 9 Extreme Emperor origin pool, you've only been in the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm for a short period of time. I'm afraid it's not very possible for you to break through again." Xiao He suddenly emerged from between Zhuowen's brows and rolled his eyes at Zhuowen. Slightly nodding his head, Zhuowen said, "It looks like there's a bottleneck after reaching the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. If there aren't any opportunities, I'm afraid it'll take a long time to break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm. Yes. This Yuan Qi Tower is your opportunity. This Dragon Lord can sense that there are many ancient ruins within the tower. There are probably many good things in those ruins." Xiao He nodded his head lightly. Hearing Xiao He mention the Yuan Qi Tower, Zhuowen suddenly asked, "Xiao He, you're also an existence that has lived since the ancient times. How much do you know about this Yuan Qi Tower?" The ancient city lord said that this Yuan Qi Tower appeared after the catastrophe 10,000 years ago. Could it be that this Yuan Qi Tower is related to the catastrophe 10,000 years ago? Xiao He's expression instantly changed when he heard this. He said coldly, "Kid, didn't this Dragon Lord tell you? If your strength hasn't reached a certain level, it's best that you don't try to find out about the catastrophe 10,000 years ago. If you really do find out the truth, I'm afraid you won't be able to survive. In any case, there are many opportunities within the Yuan Qi Tower. You should grasp them yourself." After saying that, Xiao He did not give Zhuowen a chance to speak. With a swoosh, she turned into a ray of black light and entered between Zhuowen's eyebrows. There was not the slightest sound after that. Zhuowen felt a little helpless when he saw that Xiao He was no longer speaking. It seemed that the calamity 10,000 years ago really had some unspeakable secrets. Otherwise, Xiao He would not even dare to speak about it, as if she was extremely afraid of it. "I really don't know what happened 10,000 years ago. Xiao He doesn't even dare to mention it." Zhuowen shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "Dong dong dong." Suddenly, a hurried knocking sound rang out in the room, causing Zhuowen to furrow his brows. He got up and opened the door, only to see a young man standing outside with a somewhat hurried breathing. Wasn't this young man their Ratanama City's Hu Wuying? However, at this moment, Hu Wuying was in a rather sorry state and his face was somewhat bruised. "Wuying, what's wrong?" Zhuowen asked with a frown when he saw the sorry state Hu Wuying was in. "Zhuowen, someone is targeting our Ratanama City. Just now, Ji Yuxin, the city lord, and I wanted to go out for a stroll and see the other places in the VIP area. However, we were suddenly stopped for no reason. When those people saw us, they attacked us without saying anything." Hu Wuying said in a low voice with hatred as he covered his bruised face. "Someone actually dared to attack us in the VIP area? Don't they know that fighting is not allowed in the VIP area? If the administrator finds out, I'm afraid that we will be directly arrested and disqualified from participating in the Origin Qi Tower battle," Zhuowen said with a slightly changed expression. Hu Wuying also said with a bitter smile, "We also warned them, but those people didn't listen and directly attacked us. I heard that it was Tianguang City that attacked us. Although Tianguang City is also a low-level city, its strength is indeed infinitely close to that of a mid-level city. Its city lord is also a Heavenly King realm expert. We were no match for them. Brother Ji Yu and the city lord risked their lives to get me to come back and report." "Tianguang City?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He felt that something was wrong. There were less than 2 months until the Origin Qi Tower battle. The representatives of every city should be busy preparing for the Origin Qi Tower battle. Why was it that the strongest low-level city, Tianguang City, had acted out of the norm and attacked them directly? Moreover, their target was their Ratanama City. Rattan Armor City and Tianguang City had never come into contact before. This kind of action for no reason was truly inconceivable. Let's go. Let's go take a look. Thinking of this, Zhuoan strode out of the loft. Under Hu Wuiying's lead, he directly rushed towards the scene of the incident. In an open space a few dozen feet away from the mortal stage loft, many cultivators had already gathered. They all stopped and looked towards the center of the open space. In the center of the open space, there were 7 figures. 5 of them were gathered together and surrounded the other 2. If Zhuowen was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that the 2 figures who were surrounded were Ji Yuxin and Ji Yutian. At this moment, the 2 of them were glaring at the 5 people who had surrounded them. Those 5 people seemed to be the representatives of Tianguang City. I didn't expect them to dare to attack in the VIP area. Aren't they afraid of being directly arrested by the administrator and being disqualified? Can't you see? It's been so long, but the administrator and the guards haven't come. Obviously, they plan to turn a blind eye to this. I'm afraid that Tianguang City has a good relationship with the administrator. If that's the case, I'm afraid that Rattan Armor City is in trouble. The city lord of Tianguang City is a heavenly king realm cultivator, and the strength of Tianguang City is extremely close to that of an intermediate city. I'm afraid that this unknown Rattan Armor City is in trouble. The surrounding cultivators who had gathered to watch pointed and discussed animatedly. They all looked at Ji Yuxin and Ji Yutian with pity. Although fighting was not allowed in the VIP area, there were exceptions to everything. This was because the VIP area was under the charge of the administrator. If the administrator turned a blind eye, even if the city representative made a move, they would not be held accountable. Who are you? Why are you looking for trouble with us? Rattan Armor City doesn't seem to have any enmity with you. Ji Yutian looked coldly at the 5 people around him and said angrily. Among the 5 people who had gathered, one of them was about the same age as Ji Yutian. He looked to be about 30 years old and had a full beard. The other 4 were much younger. The middle-aged man with a full beard was the city lord of Tianguang City, Liu Ruofeng. His strength had reached the initial heavenly king realm. This kind of strength was considered a top expert in a low-level city. After all, Ji Yutian, as the city lord of Rattan Armor City, was only at the complete Earth King realm. He was only slightly stronger than Ji Yuxin. The 4 youths sent by Tianguang City this time were all quite strong. They were all above the Earth King realm, and the strongest among them had reached the complete Earth King realm. What? Can't I look for trouble with you? Can't I look at you with disdain? Liu Ruofeng glanced at Ji Yutian contemptuously and sneered. Hearing those words, Ji Yuxin was so furious that his body trembled. The people in front of him were really too detestable. The 3 of them had originally been strolling around this place, yet these 5 people had suddenly appeared in front of them and attacked them without any explanation. Want to fight? Come. Let's exchange blows with your grandfather. A black-clothed youth with a gloomy face behind Liu Ruofeng clenched his fists and sneered at Ji Yuxin. This black-clothed youth was the strongest among the younger generation in Tianguang City. He was also Liu Ruofeng's son. His name was Liu Feng, and he was quite talented. His age was similar to Ji Yuxin's, but his strength had already reached the complete Earth King realm. Are you sure you said that? If you are killed by me later, don't blame me. Ji Yuxin looked coldly at Liu Feng in front of her. Kill me? You are just a guy at the complete Earth King realm, and you are weaker than me. How dare you speak so arrogantly? Hearing this, Liu Feng's face suddenly revealed a trace of anger. He took a step forward and directly rushed towards Ji Yuxin. Yuan power burst out from his body and tore the surrounding air apart. Looking at Liu Feng rushing towards her, Ji Yuxin's face did not show the slightest trace of fear. She also took a step forward and Yuan power burst out. Her right hand's 5 fingers formed a fist and directly punched towards Liu Feng. Boom! Fist against fist, instantly colliding with each other. An explosive shockwave suddenly swept out from the point of contact, causing the dust on the ground to fill the air. Deng deng deng! With a muffled groan, Ji Yuxin directly retreated dozens of steps. She coldly looked at Liu Feng, who was not far away. Liu Feng had also retreated in the previous exchange. However, he only retreated 3 steps. The gap between the two could be seen at a glance. You have some ability. However, the gap between us is already very obvious. Do you still want to struggle? If you kneel down and kowtow 10 times and lick my shoes, I will consider not killing you. I will only beat you half to death. Looking at Ji Yuxin, who had an ugly expression on her face, Liu Feng coldly laughed. I should be the one saying that. Ji Yuxin coldly snorted. She once again took a step forward and fearlessly rushed towards Liu Feng. You overestimate yourself. See if I don't cripple you. Liu Feng's expression was somewhat ugly. He patted his Chenkuan bag and took out a blue long spear. From the aura emitted from the surface of the long spear, it was obvious that it was a powerful mid-grade soul treasure. Yuan power suddenly poured into the long spear. Liu Feng's feet suddenly stomped on the ground. His hands suddenly shot out and the long spear in his hands directly left his hands. Wave-breaking spear technique. The long spear broke through the air and an endless amount of waves surged into the surroundings. It was as if the surroundings had turned into a vast ocean and directly pressed towards Ji Yuxin. Looking at the powerful long spear in front of her, Ji Yuxin was not the slightest bit afraid. She also patted her Chenkuan bag and took out a long sword that flickered with a blue light. A suffocating aura suddenly burst out from the long sword. Black water sword, ice dragon in the sky. Her hands formed a sword seal and the ground in front of Ji Yuxin suddenly shattered. A huge ice dragon that was dozens of feet long suddenly rushed out from the ground. It roared towards the sky and directly flew towards the long spear in front of it. Chapter 343. Run amok. It's actually a high-grade soul treasure. Rattan Armor City is only a low-grade city. How can it have a high-grade soul treasure? It's so powerful. This is the first time I've seen the power of a high-grade soul treasure. Looks like Rattan Armor City is not ordinary. It actually has a high-grade soul treasure, which is such a rare treasure. When Ji Yuxin displayed the power of the black water sword, it immediately caused an uproar among the surrounding crowd. The mundane pavilion was the representative of a low-grade city, so it was pitiful to have a middle-grade soul treasure, let alone a high-grade soul treasure. Rattan Armor City did not have a high-grade soul treasure back then. If it were not for Zhuoan, Ji Yuxin would not have a high-grade soul treasure. This was also why the surrounding crowd was so shocked when Ji Yuxin took out the black ice sword. Many people even revealed a trace of greed in their eyes. In a low-grade city, a high-grade soul treasure was definitely a treasure that people would fight over. Awoo! In mid-air, the huge ice dragon swept towards the long spear like a hot knife through butter. In an instant, it violently collided with the long spear. Crack! A crisp sound suddenly rang out. Under the impact of the ice dragon, the long spear in mid-air suddenly shattered inch by inch. The ice dragon's momentum did not decrease as it swept towards the stunned Liu Feng in front of it. Its huge dragon mouth directly bit towards Liu Feng's head. Bastard, how dare you! A loud shout suddenly rang out. Following which, a burly figure appeared on the ice dragon's head. He directly smashed the ice dragon's head with the 1,000-pound fall. Powerful Yuan power suddenly surged out and the surrounding air was torn apart, forming a vacuum area. Awoo! The ice dragon raised its head and let out a sorrowful cry. Under the power of the 1,000-pound fall, it actually shattered inch by inch from head to tail. Poochie! Ji Yuxin spat out a mouthful of blood and could not help but continuously retreat. Finally, with the help of Jiu Yu Tian, she stopped her body. Xin are you alright? Leaning against Ji Yuxin's back, Jiu Yu Tian asked worriedly. At this time, Ji Yuxin's face was extremely pale, and she forced a smile to Jiu Yu Tian beside her. Father, don't worry. I'm fine. After he finished speaking, his gaze was filled with fear as he looked at the sturdy figure that had suddenly appeared in front of him. This figure was Liu Feng's father, Liu Ruofeng. Father, this bastard almost killed me. You can't let that bastard off. Liu Feng, who was hiding behind Liu Ruofeng, patted his chest with lingering fear. He glared venomously at Ji Yuxin and said viciously, The power of Ji Yuxin's ice dragon in the sky was simply too terrifying. Liu Feng knew that if Liu Ruofeng hadn't come to his rescue in time, he would have been seriously injured, if not killed. Feng, don't worry. Even if you didn't say it, this old man wouldn't have let these two guys off. Liu Ruofeng smiled faintly as he stared at the profound ice sword in Ji Yuxin's hand. He didn't expect that Ji Yuxin and Ji Yutian, who came from a low-grade city, would actually possess a high-grade soul treasure. It should be known that even their Tianguang city didn't possess such a soul treasure. Kid, hand over the high-grade soul treasure in your hands, kneel on the ground and kowtow 10 times, and this old man will consider leaving your corpses intact. Liu Ruofeng slowly walked towards Ji Yuxin and Ji Yutian, his eyes filled with undisguised greed. Aren't you afraid that the administrator of this area will appear for committing such atrocities? If the administrator knows that you attacked us, you won't be able to live either, Ji Yutian angrily said as he looked at Liu Ruofeng, who was slowly walking towards them. Administrator? Liu Ruofeng shook his head. If the administrator really wanted to interfere, he would have already appeared when we started fighting. However, he still hasn't appeared, which means that he has already tacitly approved of our Tianguang city's actions. Liu Ruofeng's eyes were filled with ridicule. The reason why Tianguang city targeted Tingzhou city was not without reason. It was because the administrator of the mundane loft, Du Yang, was manipulating them from behind the scenes. That was why they dared to act so unscrupulously. Damn it! Ji Yuxin cursed bitterly. He knew that Liu Ruofeng was right. They had been in a deadlock for so long, but there was no movement from the administrator's side. He probably didn't intend to interfere. So, you'd better obediently accept your death. This old man will gladly accept the high-grade soul treasure in your hands. With a sneer, Liu Ruofeng stomped his foot on the ground. Powerful Yuan power formed a violent gale around his body, enveloping his entire body. Like an arrow, he abruptly closed in on Ji Yuxin and Ji Yutian. His 5 fingers clenched and crackled as he directly smashed towards the two. Boom! Boom! The powerful force caused a series of violent explosions in the air, as if countless bombs had exploded at the same time. It was extremely ear-piercing. Many of the surrounding cultivators retreated in awe. A Heavenly King Realm cultivator was no longer a level they could come into contact with. Ji Yuxin's expression changed greatly. He hurriedly raised the black water sword in his hand and blocked in front of him. Ji Yutian beside him also took out a defensive mid-grade soul treasure from his Chenkuan bag and blocked in front of him. Both of them displayed their most powerful defensive techniques, hoping to block Liu Ruofeng's attack. Boom! Just one punch directly hit the defense that Ji Yuxin and Ji Yutian had carefully arranged. With a clear cracking sound, the two's defense crumbled inch by inch like clay chickens and pottery dogs. The black water sword in Ji Yuxin's hand was also shaken by the powerful force and fell out of his hand. Poochie! Ji Yuxin and Ji Yutian both spat out blood. Like withered leaves, they flew backward and smashed into the ground more than 10 meters away, creating a huge pit. Liu Ruofeng did not continue to pursue. Instead, he looked at the black water sword that had been sent flying and stuck in the ground with blazing eyes. He pulled it out and held it in his hand. Feeling the cold touch of the hilt of the black water sword, Liu Ruofeng could not help but laugh. In the deep pit, Ji Yuxin looked at the black water sword in Liu Ruofeng's hand. His eyes were filled with anger and hatred. However, he was seriously injured at this time and had no ability to take back the black water sword from Liu Ruofeng. Those two are really unlucky. Their high-grade soul treasures were taken away just like that. Skylight City is considered an extremely powerful existence among all the low-grade cities, almost comparable to a mid-grade city. As the city lord of Skylight City, Liu Ruofeng is at the initial Heavenly King realm. Although those two have high-grade soul treasures, they are too weak. They deserve to be robbed. The onlookers were also in an uproar. Although many people desired the black water sword in Liu Ruofeng's hand, they were afraid of Liu Ruofeng's strength and no one dared to snatch it. Thump, 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 thump. At this moment, some clear footsteps slowly approached, immediately attracting the attention of many people. At the entrance of the open space, two figures were hurriedly walking over. Of these two figures, one of them looked a little anxious and his cheeks were a little bruised. Although the other person looked quite calm, there was a hint of gloominess in his eyes. These two people were Zhuowen and Hu Wuying, who had just arrived. At this time, the two of them also saw Jiyu Xin and Jiyu Yutian lying in the deep pit not far away. Their faces suddenly changed and they quickly walked into the deep pit. Take these 2 pills. They can temporarily suppress the injuries in your body. Zhuowen took out 2 pills from his chenkuan bag and quickly stuffed them into their mouths. After seeing Zhuowen, Jiyu Xin and Jiyu Yutian finally felt completely relieved. Unknowingly, they had already regarded the young man in front of them as their backbone. The pills melted as soon as they entered their mouths and a rich medicinal power immediately spread throughout their bodies. In an instant, the injuries in their bodies were suppressed. Feeling the suppressed injuries in their bodies, the two of them immediately revealed a glimmer of light in their eyes. Zhuowen, thank you very much. But the black water sword you gave me was snatched away. Looking at the young man in front of her, Jiyu Xin said rather shamefully. Don't blame yourself. That guy is much stronger than the two of you. It's normal that you can't beat him. Leave the rest to me. After discovering that Jiyu Xin and Jiyu Yutian were not seriously injured, Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. Then, he gloomily looked at Liu Ruofeng, who was holding the black water sword not far away and looking at them with a mocking gaze. Looks like these two are also from Rattan Armor City. However, even Rattan Armor City's city lord, Jiyu Yutian, was no match for Liu Ruofeng. These two are simply courting death by coming here. The surrounding people looked at Zhuowen and Hu Wuiying, who had just arrived, and could not help but sigh softly. They could imagine that the 4 people in front of them would very likely be killed by Liu Ruofeng. Looking at Jiyu Xin and Jiyu Yutian, who were not far away, a trace of surprise appeared in Liu Ruofeng's eyes. Then, he locked his gaze on the young man in front of him, who was staring at him fearlessly. He chuckled coldly and said, "Brat, that medicinal pill of yours was pretty good. Give me all the medicinal pills in your chenkuan bag and this old man may spare your life." His eyes gradually narrowed. Zhuowen suddenly extended 3 fingers and said indifferently, "I'll give you a chance. I'll count to 3. If you return the black water sword to me, I'll leave your body intact. If you don't give it to me, I'll directly blast you to smithereens." When Zhuowen's words came out, the surroundings suddenly became strangely silent. Everyone looked strangely at the young man in front of them. Then, wanton laughter sounded from all around. A brat who stinks of his mother's milk dares to speak such arrogant words in front of this old man. This old man is going to die from laughter. Ha ha. Liu Ruofeng and the 4 people behind him also laughed wantonly. They did not have any scruples about Zhuowen in front of them. 1, 2, 3. Ignoring Liu Ruofeng's wanton mockery, Zhuowen pretended to count down. When he reached the 3rd count, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with killing intent. He suddenly stomped his foot and disappeared from the spot. In an instant, he appeared in front of Liu Ruofeng. "Since you don't want to seize the opportunity, you can go to hell." A faintly discernible voice reverberated in the open space. Then, Zhuowen suddenly threw a punch, aiming directly at Liu Ruofeng's head. So fast. Liu Ruofeng's expression changed. He did not expect Zhuowen's speed to be so fast. However, he was not afraid. After all, Zhuowen looked about 18 years old. He did not think that Zhuowen's strength could be that strong. Therefore, he also threw a punch, which directly collided with Zhuowen's fist. Crack. Chapter 344. Administrator Du Yon's shrill scream resounded in the air. It was ear-piercing and deafening. The onlookers were shocked to find that the one who screamed wasn't the young man who had just appeared as they had expected. Instead, it was the extremely powerful Liu Ruofeng. "Is that all you've got?" A cold smile appeared on Zhuowen's face as he stared coldly at Liu Ruofeng, whose right hand was fractured. "Bastard!" The veins on Liu Ruofeng's forehead bulged as he roared angrily. The black water sword in his left hand stabbed towards Zhuowen's chest. Clang! A crisp sound of metal clashing rang out in the open space. Liu Ruofeng was shocked to find that the black water sword in his hand stabbed into the young man's chest as if it had stabbed into a rock. It could not break through the young man's physical defense at all. How is this possible? How can your physical body be so tough? Even a high-grade soul treasure can't break through it. Liu Ruofeng's pupils shrank as he exclaimed. At the same time, the surrounding onlookers also saw this scene. Everyone's eyes suddenly bulged at this moment, and the depths of their eyes were filled with thick disbelief. The young man in front of him was too terrifying. The black water sword was a high-grade soul treasure, but it could not pierce through the young man's physical body. At this moment, Liu Ruofeng was truly terrified. The young man in front of him was too terrifying. He could even withstand a high-grade soul treasure. Furthermore, he could feel the powerful energy contained in the young man's body. It could be said that the young man in front of him could crush him like an ant if he wanted to. "Little brother, we failed to recognize you just now. Please forgive us. You don't have to waste your time with us. We'll return this black water sword to you." Liu Ruofeng saw that something was wrong and knelt on the ground. He knew that he had kicked an iron plate this time. The young man in front of him was too terrifying. Seeing Liu Ruofeng kneel down so straightforwardly, many people around were stunned. Liu Ruofeng, who was so arrogant just a moment ago, was now kneeling on the ground so humbly. The contrast between before and after was really too big. Is this young man really from a low-grade city? To be able to defeat Liu Ruofeng so easily, he must be at least at the advanced Heavenly King stage or even at the complete Heavenly King stage. What is the origin of this rattan armor city? To think that such a terrifying genius could appear. Everyone's gazes converged on the young man in the middle of the open space. Discussions broke out everywhere, causing an uproar. Taking the Blackwater sword, Zhuowen stared coldly at the kneeling Liu Ruofeng. His eyes were filled with coldness as he asked coldly, "Who sent you here?" At this moment, Zhuowen's mind was exceptionally clear. Tianguang City was very far away from Rattan Armor City. Under normal circumstances, the two cities would not have much interaction, let alone any grievances. But today, Liu Ruofeng had taken the initiative to bring people to cause trouble for Rattan Armor City for no reason. Furthermore, it was in the VIP area where private fights were not allowed. All of this was too strange in Zhuowen's eyes. When Liu Ruofeng heard this, cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He did not expect that the young man in front of him was not only powerful, but his senses were also so sharp that he could instantly sense that something was wrong. "Little brother, you might have misunderstood. We didn't have anyone behind us, we just mistook you for someone else. This old man mistook your people for my former enemies, so I..." Liu Ruofeng's lips trembled slightly as he laughed awkwardly. However, before he could finish speaking, he felt an intense pain coming from his left arm. Following which, the crisp sound of bones cracking rang out once again. It was exceptionally loud in the open space. "Ah!" With a blood-curdling scream, Liu Ruofeng was shocked to find that the young man in front of him had unceremoniously stepped on his left arm. Powerful Yuan power invaded his arm, causing the bones within to shatter. Zhuowen's face was filled with indifference. He coldly stared at Liu Ruofeng, who was sweating profusely, and said, "You won't speak? Then you're completely useless. You can die now." A murderous intent burst forth from Zhuowen's eyes. Following which, Zhuowen waved his right hand. The Blackwater sword in his hand cut through the air and directly pierced towards Liu Ruofeng's forehead. "Wait. I'll speak. Don't kill me." Looking at the Blackwater sword that was getting closer and closer, Liu Ruofeng felt an extremely cold murderous intent and hurriedly shouted, "Kai!" The Blackwater sword suddenly stopped an inch away from Liu Ruofeng's forehead. The cold light emitted by the blade faintly shot into Liu Ruofeng's eyes, causing him to involuntarily shiver. "Speak. If you dare to lie, this Blackwater sword will directly pierce through your forehead," Zhuowen expressionlessly said as he pointed the Blackwater sword at Liu Ruofeng's forehead. Liu Ruofeng bitterly laughed and said, "Actually, this matter is..." Just as Liu Ruofeng was about to reveal the mastermind behind this, his gaze suddenly changed. Following which, A destructive energy abruptly came crashing down from above Liu Ruofeng's head. This energy suddenly transformed into a huge golden palm several dozen feet from the ground. With Liu Ruofeng as the center, it directly enveloped an area of several dozen feet. Zhuowen and Liu Ruofeng were both enveloped by this huge palm. Rumble. An earth-shaking rumble resounded throughout the entire open space. Following which, an endless wave of qi swept through the air along with a cloud of dust, causing the spectating cultivators to retreat more than 10 meters in the face of this huge wave of qi. Zhuowen, Jiyu Xin, Jiyu Tian, and Hu Wuiying, who were originally at the edge of the open space, couldn't help but retreat continuously because of this powerful wave of qi. After they stopped moving, their gazes converged on the center of the open space. They couldn't help but shout out loud, their voices filled with fear and worry. What a powerful origin energy palm. This power is almost at the level of an ultimate half-step Emperor realm expert. Liu Ruofeng and that youth are dead for sure. In the mundane pavilion, only one person has the strength of an ultimate half-step Emperor realm expert. That person is the manager of the mundane pavilion. Could it really be the manager who made a move? How ruthless. He didn't even ask for the reason and actually killed Liu Ruofeng and that youth. Fearful discussions resounded throughout the entire empty ground. Everyone's gazes were filled with respect as they stared at the five-finger mountain-like giant yuan power palm that stood firmly in the middle of the empty ground. They knew that Liu Ruofeng and the youth who had suddenly appeared would be crushed into meat patties under the pressure of this mountain-like origin energy palm. Not even their bones would be left behind. Two figures stood on a high ground not far from the open space. One of them was a middle-aged man dressed in grey, while the other was dressed in a luxurious purple robe. His entire body exuded a noble aura. At this moment, the middle-aged man dressed in grey stood respectfully behind the purple-robed youth. A fawning smile appeared on his face as he said, "Third Prince, aren't you being too cautious? Although Zhuowen's strength isn't bad, he's not that strong. This lowly one only needs to make a slight move to kill him." These two people were the manager of the Mortal Stage Pavilion, Du Yang, and the third prince of the House of Marquis Qin, Lu Yuanhua, who had schemed against Zhuowen. At this moment, Lu Yuanhua had his hands behind his back. His brows were slightly furrowed as he recalled the various powerful performances of Zhuowen in the ancient cave mansion. He didn't believe that Zhuowen would be so easily dealt with. If Zhuowen really hadn't made any progress in these 2 years, then it was obviously unnecessary for him to mobilize so many people to plot against Zhuowen. Yes, if that Zhuowen is really dead, that would be the best. As for the remaining people from Rattan Armor City, don't let them go either. Go capture all of them and secretly deal with them. Lu Yuanhua said with a cold expression as he nodded slightly. When Du Yang heard this, a trace of a smile immediately appeared on his face. He said, "Third Prince, don't worry. This lowly one will take care of these small matters." As he spoke, Du Yang slightly bowed and slowly retreated. Not long after, Du Yang brought more than 10 heavily armored guards and rushed towards the open space at lightning speed. These guards were all his subordinates who were the administrators. "The manager is here. Everyone be careful. The manager really came. It seems like the one who acted just now was the manager. Liu Ruofeng and that youth are really too unlucky. They provoked the manager to act. They deserved to die." Looking at Du Yang, who was leading a group of people from not far away, the expressions of the people around the open space changed slightly as they started to discuss spiritedly. As soon as Du Yang arrived at the center of the open space, his viper-like gaze stared directly at the edge of the open space. He stared at Jiyu Xin, Jiyu Tian, and Hu Wuiying, who were in a daze. He waved his hand and coldly said, "Capture the 3 of them." When Jiyu Tian and the other 2 heard this, their expressions changed greatly. Jiyu Tian hurriedly said, "Manager, why do you want to capture us? In the beginning, it was clearly Tianguang City that caused trouble for our people from Rattan Armor City. Also, was the one who acted just now you, manager? Why are you attacking our people from Rattan Armor City? Our House of Marquis Qin has long since set a rule. In this VIP area, all representatives of the cities are not allowed to fight privately. However, Your people from Ratanama City and Tianguang City are audacious. You actually knowingly broke the law. You should all be killed. Take them all away. Du Yang coldly snorted. The corners of his mouth were filled with a sinister smile. With a wave of his hand, the numerous guards behind him immediately surrounded Jiu Tian and the other two. As Jiu Tian and the other two were seriously injured, they were quickly unable to withstand the attacks of the numerous guards and were captured one after another. What a bunch of ants that don't know death. They actually want to resist me. Looking at Jiu Tian and the other two who were captured in an instant, Du Yang's gaze was filled with arrogance and disdain. Deng deng deng. At this moment, a clear sound of footsteps suddenly came slowly from the center of the open space and reverberated around the open space. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chapter 345. Defeating Du Yang. Someone is still alive after taking this old man's all-out attack. Du Yang frowned and muttered to himself as he stared at the vague figure emerging from the rolling dust. Although his strength had been forcibly raised to the half-step ultimate emperor realm through the use of pills, a full-powered attack was not something a heavenly king stage cultivator could withstand. Liu Ruofeng was only at the initial heavenly king stage, so he would definitely die under Du Yang's attack. As for Zhuowen, his aura was even weaker than Liu Ruofeng's because he had deliberately concealed his aura. Therefore, Du Yang did not think much of Zhuowen at all. Whoosh! A cool breeze blew past, blowing away all the dust in the center of the open space. Then, the originally faintly discernible figure finally appeared before everyone's eyes. It's that young man. How is this possible? The administrator is a half-step ultimate emperor realm expert. How could he not be killed by a full-powered attack? Is this young man really from a low-grade city? When the slender young figure finally appeared before everyone's eyes, it immediately caused an uproar in the open space. Everyone stared in disbelief at the spotless figure in the center of the open space. The person who had appeared before everyone was Zhuowen. At this moment, long swords were flying around Zhuowen. There were a total of 108 sword-shaped soul treasures. It was the Boundless Sword Aura, a grade 4 Yuan array. The Yuan Chi palm that had suddenly descended from the sky had been completely blocked by the Boundless Sword Aura that surrounded Zhuowen's body. Just now, the person who attacked was you? Zhuowen raised his head slightly and stared coldly at Du Yang, who was not far away. He spoke word by word, his voice filled with a cold killing intent. A killing intent that seemed to have materialized surged out from Zhuowen's eyes. When Du Yang felt this cold killing intent, his heart clenched and his body trembled involuntarily. Damn it! This brat is just a lowly commoner from a low-level city. This old man was actually frightened by him just now. After coming back to his senses, Du Yang's face immediately flushed red. He glared at Zhuowen in front of him and said, "Looks like you have some ability. You actually didn't die after taking this old man's one move head-on. However, this old man can clearly tell you that your Vine Armor City is having a private fight in the VIP area, so immediately surrender. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." When Du Yang's words left his mouth, quite a number of people in the surroundings gathered their gazes on Zhuowen. One by one, they involuntarily shook their heads. Although they were quite surprised that Zhuowen was able to survive Du Yang's attack, now that the manager Du Yang had personally come, the young man in front of them was really finished. To be able to survive Sir Manager's attack, this brat is definitely hiding his strength. It's a pity that he offended Sir Manager. Now, everything is over. Sighs immediately sounded from the surroundings. They could feel that Zhuowen's strength was much stronger than the geniuses from low-level cities like them. They were afraid that he would perform well in this Vitality Tower battle. Unfortunately, he had violated the rules of the VIP area. Surrender without a fight. I'm really sorry. Even if you are the manager of the Mundane Pavilion, you are not qualified to arrest me. Zhuowen shook his head and then stomped his foot on the ground. His entire body turned into a bolt of blue lightning and instantly arrived above Du Yang. His gaze was extremely cold. Du Yang's expression changed slightly. He did not expect that the young man in front of him would actually make a move. He simply did not put the rules of the VIP area in his eyes. Damn brat, you actually know the rules and break them. In that case, I will immediately execute you on the spot. Du Yang coldly snorted as a strong killing intent emerged in his eyes. He patted his Chenkuan bag and directly took out a huge double-edged axe. Yuan power poured into the double-edged axe like a tide. With his left foot as the axis, he stomped his right foot and his entire body spun half a circle. The huge double-edged axe carried the power to tear through the air and fiercely smashed towards Zhuowen. Looking at the incoming axe, there was not the slightest trace of fear in Zhuowen's eyes. With a thought, endless mental energy gushed out like a tide and directly formed a transparent mental energy wall in front of him. Boom! The huge axe fiercely slammed into the mental energy wall. The aftermath of the powerful force was like ripples in water, spreading across the entire open space. Some of the weaker warriors were frightened and quickly retreated. Mental energy? You are actually an arcanist. And a grade 3 arcanist at that. Looking at the mental energy wall that blocked his huge axe, Du Yang's pupils shrank slightly. He could not help but exclaim, his face full of shock. In the entire Heavenly Armor continent, the status of an arcanist was very respected. A grade 3 arcanist was comparable to the governor of an ordinary high-grade city. The status of a grade 4 arcanist was incomparably noble. Even some nobles did not dare to slight them in the slightest. Du Yang could feel that the mental energy displayed by the young man in front of him was at least at the perfect grade 3 realm. This was an existence that was only one step away from becoming a grade 4 arcanist. Moreover, what made Du Yang even more frightened was that the young man in front of him looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. For such a young man to possess mental energy at the perfect grade 3 realm, it was likely that he had an extremely terrifying grade 4 arcanist master behind him. A grade 4 arcanist was an existence that even Muqin Marquis would not dare to casually offend. How is this possible? How can such a young grade 3 arcanist appear in a small low-grade city? This is simply impossible. Du Yang panicked. Even though he was a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert and the manager of the VIP area, such a lowly position could not compare to a grade 3 arcanist. While Du Yang's thoughts were in a mess, Zhuowen's gaze focused. With a thought, the boundless sword force around him moved at the same time. Long swords that flowed with brilliant light cut through the void, rumbling as they swept towards Du Yang below. Feeling the biting cold light above him, Du Yang came to his senses. He raised his right hand and the huge double-edged axe immediately blocked in front of him. Clang! 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 Countless sword force bombarded the double-edged axe like rain. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing rang out incessantly. Thud! 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 The powerful force immediately caused Du Yang to involuntarily retreat. He retreated more than 10 steps before he could stop himself. He stared in shock at Zhuowen, who was surrounded by countless sword force in the distance. Oh! You're just a lowly manager of the mundane attic. You actually possess a high-grade spirit treasure? That's quite rare, isn't it? Seeing that Du Yang was actually barely able to block the bombardment of the boundless sword force, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a trace of interest. His boundless sword force was a powerful origin formation formed by 36 high-grade spirit treasures and 72 mid-grade spirit treasures. Even an ordinary attack could unleash the power of a high-grade spirit treasure. Ordinary high-grade spirit treasures would not be able to escape the fate of shattering under the bombardment of the boundless sword force. However, the double-edged axe in Du Yang's hand was so sturdy. It was obvious that this spirit treasure was not ordinary. Wait, sir. At this time, Du Yang was really complaining incessantly. He finally knew why Lu Yuanhua had mobilized so many people to deal with this young man called Zhuowen. It turned out that this young man was not simple. He had the mental strength of a grade 3 perfection. It was very likely that this young man's master was a high-ranking member of the Arcane Guild. He could not afford to offend such a person. It's too late now. Go to hell. The first form of the boundless sword force, flying sword slash. Slash everything that can be slashed. Ignoring Du Yang's words, Zhuowen stomped his foot and a powerful mental strength surged out. The countless sword force around Zhuowen flew into the air with Zhuowen as the center. Then, the 108 long swords instantly gathered and turned into a huge long sword that was dozens of feet long. The core formation of the boundless sword force contained 3 major sword moves. These 3 major sword moves were each more powerful than the previous one. When Zhuowen first obtained the boundless sword force, he did not fully comprehend these 3 major sword moves, so he could not unleash the true power of the boundless sword force. However, after a full year or so, Zhuowen had finally comprehended the boundless sword force. Naturally, he could unleash the 3 major sword moves contained in it. Whoosh! The huge long sword broke through the void with a dazzling speed. In an instant, it swept towards Du Yang. Wherever it passed, the surrounding space collapsed inch by inch, creating countless whirlpool-like black holes. Looking at the huge long sword that was rushing towards him, Du Yang's face became extremely solemn. He knew that if he could not block this move, he would really die here. Splitting axe space. Du Yang also used a desperate move. His right hand, which was holding the huge axe, suddenly threw it into the void. Then, a huge axe shadow descended from the sky. This axe shadow was dozens of feet in size and was almost the same size as the huge sword. Boom! In an instant, the huge sword and the axe shadow collided fiercely in the void. A huge roar exploded out of nowhere, as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Then, the space where the huge sword and the axe shadow collided directly collapsed, forming a huge black hole that was constantly devouring. Break for me. Zhuowen's gaze was extremely cold. 81 streams of valiant mental energy gushed out from his Niwen palace and fused into the giant sword hovering in the air. An extremely clear buzzing sound suddenly erupted from the giant sword, and it actually increased in size by a few notches. Crack! Looking at the axe shadow that was almost torn to shreds, Du Yang's pupils shrunk to the size of needles at this moment, while a thick fear surfaced in the depths of his eyes. After which, he felt an extremely powerful force heavily smashing against his chest. Poochie! A mouthful of blood suddenly spat out from his mouth. Du Yang's body was like a withered leaf as he flew out powerlessly. Chapter 346. Inconceivable. The manager is a half step into the ultimate emperor realm, but he was actually defeated. Isn't this too inconceivable? Is this youth called Zhuowen really from a low-level city? Judging from the battle just now, he's actually a Grade 3 Arcana Master. Grade 3 Arcana Master? How is that possible? Such a young Grade 3 Arcana Master is rarely seen even in super cities. How can such a monstrous genius appear in a low-level city? As they stared at Du Yang, who was on the verge of suffering a crushing defeat, an uproar erupted from the surroundings of the empty ground. The gazes that everyone used to look at Zhuowen had become extremely respectful. Why aren't you releasing the people from Ratanama City? Ignoring the half-dead Du Yang, Zhuowen's cold gaze suddenly locked onto the nearby guards who were still holding onto Jiu Tian and the other two. After meeting Zhuowen's cold gaze, the guards no longer had the slightest will to fight. The youth in front of them was too terrifying. Even the manager wasn't his match. Such a person wasn't someone they could deal with. Let's go. The guards glanced at Zhuowen with extreme fear, then obediently released Jiu Tian and the others. Like monkeys scattering when the tree falls, they all fled the area. Zhuowen only relaxed when he arrived beside Jiu Tian and the others and confirmed that they were fine. Zhuowen. Du Yang is the manager of the mundane level loft. You killed him just like that. Jiu Tian said with a worried expression. Don't worry. I knew what I was doing. Du Yang isn't dead. Shaking his head slightly, Zhuowen walked towards the deep pit not far from the clearing. His gaze was cold as he stared at Du Yang's twitching body. He said indifferently, "You were the one who sent those people from Skylight City to deal with us, right? Why did you do this?" At this moment, a strange smile appeared on Du Yang's face. He said, "Haha, I really didn't expect you to be so bold, Zhuowen. You even dared to hit me, the manager. Your strength is truly shocking, but so what? With your audacious behavior just now, the third prince already has enough reason to take action." "Haha, you're dead meat. Third prince. Are you talking about Lu Yuanhua? Looks like it's really that cowardly tortoise behind the scenes." Murmuring, Zhuowen suddenly reached out with his right hand and grabbed Du Yang's neck in his palm. He lifted Du Yang up in the air and shouted, "Lu Yuanhua, I know you are nearby. Since you want to deal with me, Zhuowen, then don't be a coward. Now, I'll count to 3. If he doesn't appear, I'll crush this Du Yang to death." After Zhuowen's voice was amplified by Yuan power, it was incomparably loud and clear in the entire open space. "Good, good, good. We haven't seen each other for 2 years, but Zhuowen, you're still so arrogant. Since you're so eager to die, I'll fulfill your wish." The moment Zhuowen finished speaking, a slender figure suddenly appeared in the sky from nearby. An aura as strong as a mountain came crashing down from the sky. What a powerful aura. It's an ultimate Emperor realm expert. Isn't Lu Yuanhua the 3rd prince of the house of Marquis Qin? That Zhuowen is actually acquainted with such a noble person. From the looks of it, that Zhuowen has some enmity with the 3rd prince. But as expected of the 3rd prince of the house of Marquis Qin. He looks to be around 20 years old, but has already reached the ultimate Emperor realm. That Zhuowen is Finnish. When this aura as strong as a mountain suddenly descended upon the open space, all the cultivators felt a suffocating pressure. Many of the weaker cultivators retreated far away from the open space. Most of the pressure from Lu Yuanhua's body was concentrated on Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen's figure was still as tall and straight as a pine tree. The terrifying aura from Lu Yuanhua's body didn't affect him in the slightest. Lu Yuanhua narrowed his eyes as he looked at the unmoving figure below. He then looked down at Zhuowen from above and said, "Let go of Du Yang and I'll consider leaving your corpse intact." At this moment, Du Yang, whose neck was being held by Zhuowen, stared at Zhuowen with some mockery. He chuckled and said, "Kid, the 3rd prince has spoken. Hurry up and let this old man go. Otherwise, all of Ratanama City will die. You're really noisy. You're meat on my chopping block now, and you still dare to be so arrogant in front of me. I really don't know where you get your courage from." As he spoke, Zhuowen smiled coldly at LV Yuanhua, who was in the air. Following which, his right hand suddenly exerted force, and a powerful origin energy fiercely invaded Du Yang's neck. A clear cracking sound reverberated throughout the entire open space. Du Yang died with his eyes wide open as he glared at Zhuowen. He hadn't expected that Zhuowen would be so audacious as to kill him even after Lu Yuanhua had appeared. "Lu Yuanhua, as someone who once lost to me, do you think you have the right to order me around?" With a light flick of his right hand, Zhuowen unceremoniously tossed Du Yang's corpse to the side. He then raised his head slightly and looked at Lu Yuanhua with a mocking gaze. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground slowly rang out. The surrounding fighters all stared blankly at the corpse of manager Du Yang. They hadn't expected that Zhuowen would be so audacious as to kill Du Yang in front of Lu Yuanhua. He didn't give Lu Yuanhua any face at all. Lu Yuanhua's expression became extremely gloomy. His eyes were filled with dense killing intent as he said coldly, "Good. Very good. I originally planned to deal with you after entering the Tower of Vitality. Since you don't know the difference between life and death, then you don't need to participate in the battle for the Tower of Vitality. Die now." As he spoke, Lu Yuanhua took a step in the air. His entire body was as light as a bird as he suddenly chased after Zhuowen at an extremely fast speed. Zhuowen's expression turned serious as he looked at Lu Yuanhua rushing towards him. He patted his Chenkuan bag with his right hand and took out a large blood-red spear. It was the Moon Demon Dragon's Pine Spear that had evolved into a high-grade soul treasure. Boom! A powerful aura suddenly surged out from Zhuowen's body. Although this aura was much weaker than Lu Yuanhua's, it still caused the surrounding fighters' expressions to change. No wonder he was able to defeat manager Du Yang so easily. It turns out that Zhuowen is actually a half-step ultimate Emperor realm expert. His mental energy is at the perfect 3rd grade, and his martial cultivation is at the half-step ultimate Emperor realm. This Zhuowen is truly a freak. But so what if he's at the half-step ultimate Emperor realm? The 3rd prince is a true ultimate Emperor realm expert. Even if he's only at the first wheel, a half-step ultimate Emperor realm cultivator can't compare to him. This Zhuowen is probably going to die here. Everyone around the clearing could sense the powerful aura coming from the fearless youth standing in the middle of the clearing. It immediately caused quite a commotion. Oh, you've actually advanced to the half-step ultimate emperor realm? Looks like your cultivation speed is pretty good, but if that's all you've got, then you should just die. In the sky, Lu Yuanhua could also sense the powerful aura erupting from Zhuowen's body. The smile on his face grew even wider. He knew that Zhuowen, who was only at the half-step ultimate emperor realm, was definitely going to die this time. At the top of a pavilion not too far away from the clearing, two beautiful figures were gazing at the clearing from afar. One of them was dressed in a light blue muslin dress. Her snow-white skin was faintly discernible, and she exuded a fresh and elegant aura. The other figure was slightly smaller. Her fiery red muslin dress was draped over her body, making her seem like a wisp of inexhaustible flame. These two figures were Qing Lian and Hong Lian, who'd come out of the Jade Maiden Star Court to search for Zhuowen. They'd originally planned to head directly to the Mortal Pavilion to look for Zhuowen, but they hadn't expected to see this scene in the clearing. Lu Yuanhua is a true Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Zhuowen is only at the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm. Senior sister, if you don't act, then Zhuowen will definitely die. Hong Lian's watery eyes turned slightly as she glanced at Qing Lian beside her and giggled. Qing Lian smiled faintly and said, "Junior sister, you're underestimating Zhuowen too much." Back then, he was able to rely on his own strength to make Lu Yuanhua suffer a great loss. This proves that he's not ordinary. Let's wait and see. Ari, senior sister, why do you think so highly of Zhuowen? The difference between a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert and a Ultimate Emperor Realm expert is like the difference between heaven and earth. No matter how heaven-defying Zhuowen is, it's not very likely that he'll be a match for a Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Perhaps Lu Yuanhua will only need one move to completely eliminate Zhuowen. The corners of Hong Lian's mouth twitched. She shrugged and muttered somewhat disapprovingly. In her opinion, Zhuowen definitely wouldn't be able to last a single round against Lu Yuanhua. Zhuowen was dead for sure. Hey! Zhuowen and Lu Yuanhua have started fighting. Let's see how many moves Zhuowen can last before he dies from Lu Yuanhua. Hong Lian immediately noticed that Lu Yuanhua couldn't help but charge towards Zhuowen. A trace of interest suddenly appeared on her pretty face. Qing Lian didn't say a word. Her beautiful eyes were tightly fixed on the young man's figure in the open space. She believed in her intuition. Zhuowen, who came from a low-grade city, was definitely not simple. This was also the reason why she had taken the initiative to befriend Zhuowen back in the ancient cave dwelling. In the sky above the open space, Lu Yuanhua's right hand grabbed at the air. The surrounding yuan qi immediately condensed and finally transformed into a long golden spear that was several feet long. Whoosh! The golden spear fiercely streaked through the air and directly shot towards Zhuowen. The surrounding air seemed to be torn apart by the spear and actually collapsed inch by inch. This was the strength of an Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. They could communicate with the energy of the world at any time and use it to unleash powerful energy at will. Chapter 347. Challenging a cultivator of a higher realm. Zhuowen's expression was extremely serious as he stared at the golden spear shooting towards him. At the same time, a trace of excitement flickered in his eyes. This was the first time he was going to fight against an Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Zhuowen's strength could be considered at the peak of the half-step Emperor Realm. Back then, even General Fei Long, an expert who could escape from an Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, had died at Zhuowen's hands. Zhuowen really wanted to test just how big the gap was between him and a true Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Looks like I'll have to go all out. It's been a long time since I've felt the excitement of using my full strength. Licking his lips, the boundless sword qi around Zhuowen's body suddenly shrank, forming a steel-like defensive barrier around Zhuowen's body. At the same time, Zhuowen rapidly formed several seals with his hands. Lightning surged out from his back and transformed into two pairs of lightning wings. One pair was 10 meters long with countless lightning snakes coiling around its surface. It was the lightning serpent wings. The other pair was 15 meters long with a flood dragon on its surface. It was the lightning serpent wings. Although the thunder serpent wings and thunder serpent wings were sacred talismans that focused on speed, the two pairs of thunder wings also had a defensive effect. As long as the thunder wings were closed, they could wrap around the caster and protect them like an eggshell. At the same time, Zhuowen's right hand, which was holding the spear, suddenly moved his fingers. The blood-red spear immediately began to spin rapidly. Following that, waves of dense blood energy gushed out from the spear and blossomed into blood-red maple leaves around Zhuowen's body. The leaves revolved around Zhuowen's body, forming a blood-red barrier. After completing the 3 layers of defense, Zhuowen raised his head and looked at the golden spear that was tearing through the void. He was not afraid at all. With a stomp of his foot, he turned into a bolt of lightning and arrived above the golden spear in an instant. He clenched his right hand and the blood-colored great spear suddenly shot out. He actually wanted to meet force with force. Has Zhuowen gone mad? He actually dares to meet an ultimate Emperor Realm expert's attack head-on? He's simply courting death. The surrounding cultivators had strange looks in their eyes as they stared at the youth who didn't even try to dodge. They all shook their heads and sighed. In their opinion, Zhuowen was simply courting death. Even Qing Lian, who was standing at the top of a nearby pavilion, couldn't help but frown. She hadn't expected Zhuowen to be so unwise. It was obvious that Lu Yuanhua's cultivation level was much higher than his own, but he still dared to meet force with force. Senior sister. Is the Zhuo when you think highly of someone like this? Qing Lian's Luo Luo, Luo Luo Luo, Luo Luo, Luo's Luos. Luo 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 Luo. Luo 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 Luo's Luo. Originally, Luo Luo was a little interested in Zhuowen because of Qing Lian. However, Zhuowen's actions, which seemed like he was courting death, made her feel ridiculed in her heart. A beast without any intelligence would know to retreat when facing a strong enemy. However, Zhuowen was simply brainless. Luo 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 was clearly much stronger than him, but he still dared to meet force with force. In Luo Luo's heart, this wasn't a courageous act. Instead, it was an extremely stupid act. The blood-red long spear and the huge golden great spear collided violently. Endless astral winds immediately tore through the air like blades. The surrounding air seemed to be boiling. Stupid fellow, do you think it's still 2 years ago? You actually dared to meet my attack head-on. You're simply courting death. Lu Yuanhua's eyes were gloomy as he sneered mockingly. Boom. In an instant, the golden spear blasted away the blood-red spear and slammed into Zhuowen's body. The enormous force caused Zhuowen to groan and fall like a meteor. Rumble. He smashed into the ground, creating a deep crater that was several meters wide. For a moment, the entire area was filled with dust and obscured the view. He lost. At the edge of the clearing, Jiu Tian and the other 2 stared helplessly at the falling figure. They couldn't help but sigh as their eyes flickered with grief and indignation. Lu Yuanhua was just too strong. He was a genuine ultimate Emperor Realm expert. The difference between Zhuowen and the former was just too great. Although Zhuowen was a monstrous genius, the difference between the two was just too great. He wasn't a match for Lu Yuanhua at all. Many cultivators around the open space also shook their heads and sighed. After all, this was a mundane stage loft, and the surrounding cultivators were basically from low-level cities, so they naturally felt a sense of familiarity towards Zhuowen, who was also from a low-level city. Now that Zhuowen had been personally killed by Lu Yuanhua, many cultivators couldn't help but feel a sense of sympathy for the death of a rabbit. At the top of a nearby pavilion, Hong Lian, who was standing beside Qing Lian, shook her head. She looked at Qing Lian with waning interest and said, "Senior sister, let's go." That Zhuowen really overestimated himself. He actually wanted to fight an ultimate Emperor Realm expert with the strength of a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm expert. He was simply courting death. Now that that fellow is dead, there's no need for us to waste any more time on Zhuowen. At this moment, Qing Lian frowned slightly and sighed softly. Her beautiful eyes, which were originally filled with anticipation, were now filled with disappointment. Perhaps she really had misjudged him. After all, Zhuowen was only from a low-level city. Without the support of a deep foundation, how could he possibly compare to the superpowers of their provincial capital? Although Zhuowen had defeated Lu Yuanhua 2 years ago, that was already in the past. The house of Marquis Qin's foundation was even more terrifying than their Jade Maiden Star Courts. With the support of numerous resources, that Lu Yuanhua could surpass Zhuowen in a short period of time. Perhaps I was too naive back then. Let's go, junior sister. Since Zhuowen is dead, there's no need for us to stay here any longer. Qing Lian glanced indifferently at the deep pit in the clearing in the distance and shook her head as she spoke to Hong Lian. I told you. How could a fellow from a low-level city possibly have the potential to help our Jade Maiden Star Court? Even if his talent was not bad, how could his resources and foundation be compared to our provincial capital's superpowers? It's good that Zhuowen is dead. Sister Qing Lian, you don't have to worry about that fellow all day long. Seeing the gloomy expression on Qing Lian's pretty face, Hong Lian hurriedly pushed all the blame onto Zhuowen and comforted her with soft words. Just as the two women were about to leave, an uproar suddenly rang out in the clearing not far away. Then, a clear and familiar voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire clearing. Lu Yuanhua, even if you've advanced to the ultimate emperor realm, it doesn't seem like you've made much progress. Your attack power is like scratching an itch for me. A clear and melodious voice slowly sounded, reverberating in the ears of the two women who were about to leave. Then, the two women who were about to leave suddenly stopped. Their pupils suddenly shrank, and they turned their heads to look in the direction of the open space. They saw a figure slowly walk out of the huge pit in the middle of the clearing. He fearlessly stared at Lu Yuanhua in the sky. This fellow, he's not dead. How is this possible? A half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator shouldn't be able to withstand an all-out attack from an Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. How did this fellow do it? A trace of shock finally appeared on Hong Lian's pretty face. She would have believed it if some heaven-defying half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator had managed to escape from an Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. After all, some half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators were quite good at preserving their lives. It was still possible for them to escape from an Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. But if it was said that a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator had fought an Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator head-on, then it was truly inconceivable. The gap between a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator and a true Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator was just too great. Even the most heaven-defying half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator shouldn't be able to withstand an all-out attack from an Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. Even Qing Lian's jade-like hands were trembling slightly. She didn't conceal the shock on her face at all. But after her initial shock, she was pleasantly surprised. She knew that Zhuowen wouldn't be defeated so easily. In the open space, Zhuowen did not seem to be injured at all. After all, he had 3 layers of defense: the blood-red maple leaf, the limitless sword aura, the lightning serpent wings, and the lightning serpent wings. So, although the golden spear's attack had smashed Zhuowen to the ground, most of the power of the golden spear had been weakened by the 3 layers of defense. Zhuowen's powerful physical body was completely capable of withstanding the remaining bit of power. This was also why Zhuowen was still as lively as a tiger even after taking an all-out attack from Lu Yuanhua. He actually seems to be unharmed. What's wrong with Zhuowen? How did he manage to withstand an all-out attack from an Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator so easily? Is Zhuowen really a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator? How can he be so abnormal? An uproar suddenly broke out in the open space. All the cultivators focused their gazes on the center of the open space. Although the young man seemed to be in a sorry state, he didn't seem to be injured at all. Looks of shock appeared on their faces. In the air, LV Yuanhua, whose face was originally filled with a sneer, stiffened at this moment. His gaze stared straight at Zhuowen, who was below him. His pupils had shrunk to the size of needles as he muttered in a low voice, "How could this guy withstand my attack? There's clearly such a huge gap between us. It looks like I've underestimated Zhuowen. It looks like his defensive techniques are pretty good. But even if you can withstand one of my attacks, I don't believe that you can withstand the next one." With a cold snort, Lu Yuanhua stomped his foot in the air and shot towards Zhuowen like a meteor. At the same time, he gently pinched the air with his hands. 2 large golden blades instantly condensed between his hands. Chapter 348. The Great Battle. It's just an insignificant trick. LV Yuanhua coldly snorted as he looked at the blood-colored great spear that was thrusting towards him. He waved the large blade in his right hand, and a clear ding sound rang out as he directly intercepted the blood-colored great spear. At the same time, Lu Yuanhua's left hand didn't remain idle. He swung it down viciously at Zhuowen's head, and the powerful force behind it created an endless vortex in the surrounding air. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly as the heavy blade came crashing down. The lightning serpent wings on Zhuowen's back flapped fiercely, and his entire body turned into a streak of after-images as he disappeared from the spot like a bolt of lightning. Lu Yuanhua's blade struck empty air. Lu Yuanhua's pupils shrank as he stared at the after-images in front of him. He muttered hatefully, "How can this guy be so fast?" Whoosh! Zhuowen's speed had practically reached the limit. With the assistance of the lightning serpent wings, Zhuowen's speed was so fast that even an ordinary Ultimate Emperor Realm expert would have a hard time catching up to him. After dodging Lu Yuanhua's blade, Zhuowen instantly appeared several meters behind Lu Yuanhua. Killing intent burst forth from his eyes as he gently moved his fingers. The blood-red spear suddenly spiraled and stabbed towards Lu Yuanhua's back. Clang! Just as the tip of the blood-red spear was about an inch away from Lu Yuanhua's back, an invisible barrier appeared behind Lu Yuanhua's back, blocking the blood-red spear. This invisible barrier was LV Yuanhua's ability to draw upon the power of the world. This was the most fundamental characteristic that distinguished the Ultimate Emperor realm from other realms. It allowed one to draw upon the power of the world at any time and place for one's own use. The power of the world was illusory and ethereal, but it truly existed. This strange energy contained the principles of the world, and only those who had reached the Ultimate Emperor realm or above could sense and use this powerful ability. It was precisely because Ultimate Emperor realm experts were able to mobilize the energy of heaven and earth at any time that they had such a high status in the entire Qing Empire and were revered by thousands of cultivators. Because the term Ultimate Emperor realm represented an expert. Zhuowen, although your strength has indeed exceeded my expectations, so what if your strength is heaven-defying? After all, you're just a half-step Ultimate Emperor realm expert. You can't sense the power of the world's power, however, I have the assistance of the power of heaven and earth. You are no match for me. LV Yuanhua slowly turned around and stared coldly at Zhuowen. The corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. Didn't you say that you could kill me? How many moves have you exchanged with me now? You're an Ultimate Emperor realm expert, yet you can't even deal with a half-step Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Don't you feel ashamed? Zhuowen sneered as he retorted. Lu Yuanhua's face darkened when he heard this. He stared at the 2 pairs of lightning wings on Zhuowen's back as a trace of greed appeared in the depths of his eyes. You're quite sharp-tongued. If it weren't for those lightning wings, do you think you'd be able to escape from me? However, the secret technique of your lightning wings is quite rare. It can actually increase your speed by so much. Even an Ultimate Emperor realm expert like me can't compare to you. After I kill you, your secret technique will belong to me. With that, Lu Yuanhua took a step forward and charged towards Zhuowen once more. With a single thought, boundless power of the world surged towards him. Zhuowen wasn't afraid. He had 3 layers of defense and an extremely tough body. Although his offensive power couldn't compare to Lu Yuanhua's, his speed and endurance weren't inferior to Lu Yuanhua's. Boom! 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 In an instant, the 2 of them collided fiercely in the air. In the blink of an eye, they'd exchanged dozens of blows. Every time they clashed, the surrounding space would explode and countless black holes would appear in the void. Waves of air would spread out like a tide. After all, Zhuowen was only a half-step Ultimate Emperor realm expert. His strength was slightly inferior to Lu Yuanhua's. Therefore, he was at an absolute disadvantage when the 2 of them clashed in the air. Fortunately, Zhuowen had the assistance of the lightning serpent wings. Even if he wasn't a match for Lu Yuanhua, he could rely on his speed to dodge in time. Sometimes, when Lu Yuanhua's attacks couldn't be avoided, the power of those attacks would be weakened by the 3 layers of defense. Therefore, the damage they could cause to Zhuowen was negligible. Therefore, even though Zhuowen was at a disadvantage, he had many tricks up his sleeve. Even Lu Yuanhua, who had the upper hand, couldn't do anything to Zhuowen. This made Lu Yuanhua gnash his teeth in anger. Intense collisions that shook the earth and mountains continued to erupt in the air. Moreover, the collisions grew more and more intense. It was as if the entire sky was about to collapse. All the cultivators on the ground were stunned by the earth-shattering battle in the sky. Some of them even couldn't help but gape. They weren't surprised by the intensity of the battle, but by the fact that Zhuowen, who was clearly only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, was actually able to fight a true Ultimate Emperor Realm expert without being defeated. Is Zhuowen even human? He actually dares to fight a Ultimate Emperor Realm expert alone with the strength of a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert? And he's even fighting for so long without being defeated. That's completely unheard of. Ultimate Emperor Realm experts are supreme experts who have grasped the power of heaven and earth. Even a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert is like an ant in front of such an expert. But this Zhuowen is simply a freak. If a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert can fight an Ultimate Emperor Realm expert without being defeated, then just how terrifying will Zhuowen be when he reaches the Ultimate Emperor Realm? On the empty ground, countless uproars exploded out of nowhere like lightning and thunder. Everyone's faces were filled with reverence as they looked at the 2 people who were continuously fighting in the sky. A battle of this level had already far exceeded their imagination. Even Jiu Tian and the others who were standing at the edge of the field were staring blankly at the intense battle in the sky. After a long period of absent-mindedness, Hu Wuying couldn't help but gulp. He smiled bitterly and said, "Is this Brother Zhuowen's true strength?" "Perhaps." Jiu Tian and Jiu Xin couldn't help but murmur in reply. However, their somewhat lifeless gazes had already completely betrayed their current feelings. At this moment, at the top of a pavilion not too far away from the open space, Qing Lian and Hong Lian were already dumbstruck. As they looked at the 2 figures that were fighting intensely not too far away, their eyes were already filled with shock. A half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert can fight a true Ultimate Emperor Realm expert head-on. Just where did this freak come from? The ridicule on Hong Lian's pretty face had completely vanished. It was replaced by deep disbelief. Originally, when Zhuowen recklessly fought Lu Yuanhua head-on, she had even mocked Zhuowen for being crazy. However, she no longer had such thoughts because not only was Zhuowen still alive, he was even fighting Lu Yuanhua without losing. He was only at a disadvantage. Hong Lian was also a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, but if she were to face a first-cycle Ultimate Emperor Realm expert like Lu Yuanhua, perhaps she would be able to take a few blows from him. However, she definitely wouldn't be like Zhuowen, who remained undefeated after exchanging several hundred blows with Lu Yuanhua. A ripple also surfaced on Qing Lian's pretty face. She was also deeply shocked by Zhuo Wen's somewhat heaven-defying performance. She really did not expect that within a short 2 years, the young man in front of her would actually be able to develop to such an extent by relying on himself. This really caused Qing Lian's heart to be extremely shocked. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the battle between Zhuowen and Lu Yuanhua had reached its climax. The 2 of them fought until the sky darkened and the earth darkened. They fought from the sky to the ground, from the east to the west, and from the south to the north. The ripples created by the repeated collisions were like the sharpest blades in the world. They constantly sliced through the surrounding space, causing vortex-like black holes to appear in the surrounding space. Such an intense battle finally attracted the attention of the numerous city representatives in the other districts. Many figures flew out from the Man Step, Earth Step, and the most luxurious Heaven Step pavilions that were scattered near the Yuan Energy Tower. They hovered in the air and gazed at the 2 figures crazily fighting in the air above the Mortal Step pavilions. What powerful ripples! Someone actually dares to fight in the VIP area. Don't tell me they don't care about the people from the House of Marquis Qin. These ripples contain traces of the energy of heaven and earth. Are those two figures both Ultimate Emperor Realm experts? Since they are Ultimate Emperor Realm experts, why are they in the Mortal Step Pavilion? Hey! Isn't that man in purple the third prince of the House of Marquis Qin, Lu Yuanhua? I've even met him before. Many of the cultivators who flew out from the other pavilions were half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm and Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. These powerful cultivators were basically all from super cities. Of course, there were also some from high-ranked cities, but the chances of such young experts appearing in high-ranked cities were quite low. Among these cultivators, someone immediately recognized Lu Yuanhua, who was fighting in the sky above. It really is the third prince of the House of Marquis Qin, Lu Yuanhua. But who is he fighting with? I think that kid is only around 18 years old. How can he fight with the third prince of the House of Marquis Qin at such a young age? No. The youth fighting with Lu Yuanhua seems to only be a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Suddenly, another person with sharp eyes recognized the aura on Zhuowen, who was fighting with Lu Yuanhua. After all, Zhuowen was fighting with his full strength and had no intention of hiding his aura. Thus, it only took a little bit of probing to detect that Zhuowen was a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm? How is that possible? That Lu Yuanhua is a true Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. How can a mere half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator fight with Lu Yuanhua to such an extent? Isn't this a little too unbelievable? Chapter 349. LV Yongsheng is actually just a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Who is that young man? A half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator can fight an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator head-on. Isn't this guy a little too abnormal? The cultivators hovering in the air involuntarily began to discuss among themselves. If it was a battle between two Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators, they wouldn't have made such a big fuss. However, the current situation was that a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator was actually fighting an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He was merely at a disadvantage and showed no signs of defeat at all. The difference between a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator and an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator was obvious to all. If an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator met a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, it would be a one-sided battle. It wouldn't be a draw like this at all. Ouyang Yuntu, Qiu Chou, and Ouyang Hanxian stood side by side among the many cultivators in the sky above the Heaven Stage Pavilion. Their gazes were fixed on the fierce battle between Zhuowen and Lu Yuanhua in the distance. Their eyes were filled with deep shock. Brother Zhuowen is indeed a peerless genius. Although he's only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, his strength is actually so strong. He's only at a slight disadvantage in a head-on clash with Lu Yuanhua. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to do it at all. Ouyang Hanxuan's fair face was slightly stiff. The corners of his mouth curled into a bitter smile as he muttered to himself. Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou looked at each other. They weren't as shocked as Ouyang Hanxian. Back in Broken Rock City, they'd seen Zhuowen destroy the entire blood swamp by himself. They knew that Zhuowen's true trump card was the extremely terrifying Icefire Lotus. If Zhuowen had used the Icefire Lotus, then Lu Yuanhua would have been defeated in an instant. It was even possible that Lu Yuanhua would have died. That Lu Yuanhua is the third prince of the House of Marquis Qin. Why would he find trouble with Zhuowen? Could it be that Zhuowen and that Lu Yuanhua have some sort of grudge to begin with? Ouyang Yuntu asked with a slight frown. Perhaps. Let's take a look again. That little guy, Zhuowen, doesn't seem to be having a hard time against that Lu Yuanhua. It's very likely that the little guy wants to use the battle against Lu Yuanhua to feel the power of the world. Qiu Chou nodded slightly and said with praise. In addition to the cultivators in the Heaven Stage loft who had rushed out because of the huge commotion, many cultivators had also gathered in the Earth Stage loft area adjacent to the Heaven Stage loft area. These cultivators were all representatives of high-grade cities. Among the numerous cultivators in the Earth Stage loft, there was a very inconspicuous group that was looking at the battle in the distance with complicated gazes. If Zhuowen were here, He would have definitely recognized this group as the representatives of Green Dragon City that had entered the VIP area with them last time. Fan Yi, who was standing at the front of the group, had a complicated expression on his face as he watched Lu Yuanhua continuously fight. He sighed deeply and said, "I really didn't expect little friend Zhuoan to be so strong. He's only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, yet is able to fight a true Ultimate Emperor Realm expert to such an extent." The expressions of the 8 youths behind Fan Yi became even more dazed. At the same time, they secretly rejoiced in their hearts. When they had found out that Zhuo Wen and the others had come from a low-level city, they had been extremely angry. Moreover, they had planned to take revenge. Fortunately, Fan Yi had stopped them. If they had really taken revenge back then, it was very likely that not even their bones would be left. That Zhuo Wen was really too frightening. Boom! Boom! In the open space, strong astral winds accompanied by countless strength chi flew out, forming wave after wave of waves in the surrounding space, filling the entire space. The martial warriors who were originally in the open space all hid far away, because the aftermath of the battle between the two was not something they could withstand. In the air, Lu Yuanhua's expression was extremely gloomy as he looked at the young man in front of him who had blocked his attacks time and time again. He was actually extremely shocked. His opponent was only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, yet he could actually fight him to such an extent. This was simply beyond his imagination. "Zhuoan! You bastard! Die! Die! Die!" Lu Yuanhua roared angrily towards the sky. His hands immediately formed a series of seals. Powerful Yuan power condensed between his hands to an extremely terrifying degree. Then, the void behind Lu Yuanhua suddenly split open, revealing a huge black hole that was hundreds of meters wide. A huge palm that was hundreds of meters wide suddenly stretched out from the black hole. The palm was extremely lifelike, as if it was the palm of a real person. Zhuoan could even see extremely clear palm lines on the surface of the palm. A formidable aura suddenly overflowed from the huge palm. What a powerful aura! What kind of armor technique is Lu Yuanhua using? How can the aura it exudes be so terrifying? Even Zhuoan's heart trembled as he stared at the huge palm that had ripped open space. His eyes were filled with shock. Lu Yuanhua's face was pale, but madness flashed through his eyes. He stared coldly at Zhuoan and said coldly, "I never thought that you would actually be able to force me to use this move. This is our House of Marquis Qin's extremely precious low Emperor tier armor technique, the mountain-splitting steely palm. It's a powerful armor technique that I only managed to cultivate after reaching the Ultimate Emperor realm. Zhuoan, you're dead." It's actually a royal tier armor technique. Zhuoan's face became extremely ugly when he heard that. Armor techniques were divided into 4 ranks: mortal, human, earth, and heaven. The chaotic dragon cry fist that Zhuoan had cultivated before was a heaven tier armor technique, but it was rumored that there were even more powerful armor techniques above the heaven tier. They were called royal tier armor techniques. Only Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators were qualified to cultivate the royal tier armor skill. If cultivators below the Ultimate Emperor Realm tried to forcefully comprehend it, they would probably be devoured by the royal tier armor skill and die from the backlash. LV Yuanhua had only started cultivating the royal tier armor skill after advancing to the Ultimate Emperor Realm. However, royal tier armor techniques were extremely powerful, almost to the point where the world would darken and the sun and moon would dim. Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators possessed the powerful ability to control the energy of the world as they wished, but when combined with a royal tier armor technique, the power was enough to shatter mountains. Destroying an entire city would be no problem. However, royal tier armor techniques were just far too rare. Even Zhuoan had only heard about them from Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou. It was said that even the House of Marquis Qin, the number of royal tier armor techniques in Muqin province, was pitifully few. They could be counted with a single hand. Heavens! Lu Yuanhua has been forced into a corner. He's actually used the royal tier armor technique, the mountain-splitting steely palm, as expected of the heir of the House of Marquis Qin. He's able to come into contact with a royal tier armor technique as soon as he reaches the Ultimate Emperor realm. How envious! Sigh. This royal tier armor technique is just too powerful. I wonder if it'll destroy the restrictions in the VIP area. Countless warriors raised their heads and stared at the huge palm that had emerged from the black hole in the void. Their eyes were filled with intense shock. Rumble. A thunderous rumble suddenly resounded through the entire area. Then, the giant palm that had emerged from the void was like a falling meteor, smashing towards Zhuowen. The huge palm overflowed with a powerful aura. It was like a towering mountain pressing down on Zhuowen's body. It actually caused Zhuowen to be unable to move at all. He could only watch as the huge palm approached him. Damn it! This royal tier armor technique isn't something that I can resist. It looks like only the power of the Icefire Lotus can resist this mountain-splitting steely palm. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were suddenly filled with calmness. At the same time, the two ice and fire runes on the back of his hands slowly lit up. Two waves of ice and fire energy gradually lingered in Zhuowen's hands. At this moment, Zhuowen was ready to create the Icefire Lotus at any time. Boom! Just as Zhuowen was about to summon the Icefire Lotus, a handsome young man in a purple-gold robe suddenly appeared in the void above Lu Yuanhua. This handsome youth's appearance was somewhat similar to LV Yuanhua's, but at this moment, his complexion was extremely unsightly. With a wave of his right hand, an extremely powerful force burst forth, and the terrifying giant palm in the air actually collapsed inch by inch. When the giant palm disappeared, the pressure on Zhuowen's body receded like the tide. He then looked at the young man in the purple-gold robe who had suddenly appeared beside Lu Yuanhua. "Second brother, why did you stop me? That mountain-splitting steely palm just now could have directly killed Zhuowen." In the sky, Lu Yuanhua looked at the young man in front of him in a flustered and exasperated manner. "Third brother, are you courting death? Use your brain and think about it. You actually dared to use a royal tier armor technique in the VIP area. Once the might of this armor technique is displayed, I'm afraid that all the restrictions around this mundane tier pavilion will collapse. At that time, some of the old fellows in the family will notice. At that time, even Lord Father won't be able to save you." This purple-gold robed young man was Lu Yuanhua's second brother, Lu Yongsheng. At this moment, Lu Yongsheng coldly snorted. When Lu Yuanhua heard this, a trace of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Their house of Marquis Qin wasn't managed by their father alone. There was also an elder council whose authority wasn't inferior to their father's. Lu Yongsheng was right. If Lu Yuanhua had really used the mountain-splitting steely palm, Zhuowen might have been killed by him. However, the restrictions around the mundane tier pavilion would have collapsed. At that time, a group of elders wouldn't let Lu Yuanhua off. After all, this VIP area was an important place. Right now, those old fellows in the Elder Council haven't noticed me, right? Lu Yuanhua asked cautiously. Looking at the cautious third brother in front of him, Lu Yongsheng helplessly shrugged and said, "Don't worry. I've already helped you cover up for the Elder Council. However, if you destroy the restrictions around this mundane tier pavilion, you'll really be in big trouble." Second brother's reminder is right. However, I really don't want to let this Zhuowen go. Lu Yuanhua stared at Zhuowen below and said fiercely. Following Lu Yuanhua's line of sight, Lu Yongsheng also stared coldly at Zhuowen below and said, "I'll help you kill this kid, so that you won't be distracted by this matter in the future." As he said this, Lu Yongsheng lightly stepped on the ground and instantly appeared behind Zhuowen. His right elbow gently pierced through the 3 layers of defense on Zhuowen's body and directly hit the middle of his back. Poochie. Zhuowen's eyes widened. He didn't know when Lu Yongsheng appeared behind him. Moreover, what made him even more shocked was that the 3 layers of defense on his body were like paper in front of Lu Yongsheng. "You!" Turning his head to stare at Lu Yongsheng, Zhuowen couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood and said in a trembling voice. The guy in front of him was so strong that he couldn't even muster up a shred of resistance. "I'll also let you die with understanding. My name is Lu Yongsheng, and I'm Yuanhua's second brother. In order to not let Yuanhua be distracted by your matter, please die." Chapter 350. Danger Rumble. At this moment, LV Yongsheng's elbow seemed to have turned into a rich golden color. Along the way, it formed a golden afterimage as it smashed towards the back of Zhuo Wen, whose wound was already wide open. An intense sense of impending death almost caused Zhuo Wen's pupils to shrink to the size of needles. LV Yongsheng was a famous young expert in the entire Qing Xian Empire, and was also a famous person on the Qing Huang ranking. Zhuo Wen knew that if he was hit by this elbow, he might really die. Damn it! How can I die in a place like this? At this moment, Zhuo Wen's heart was filled with unwillingness. However, he knew that LV Yongsheng was simply too strong. LV Yongsheng was a true ultimate Emperor realm expert. No matter how heaven-defying Zhuo Wen was, the difference between the two of them was like heaven and earth. How could he be a match for LV Yongsheng? Looking at the elbow that was getting closer and closer, Zhuo Wen really wanted to dodge. However, the pressure emanating from LV Yongsheng's body was practically pressing Zhuo Wen to the ground, making it impossible for him to move. Boom! Just as the elbow smashed towards Zhuo Wen's back with irresistible force, an ink-black energy suddenly appeared at Zhuo Wen's back, instantly blocking the incoming elbow. Poochie! Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Zhuo Wen rolled a dozen meters on the ground in a somewhat sorry state. Then, he knelt on one knee, looking at LV Yongsheng with an extremely gloomy gaze. Hey! He actually blocked it. LV Yongsheng frowned as he looked at the sorry figure of Zhuo Wen and muttered to himself. At this moment, Zhuo Wen was trembling with fear. His breathing was hurried as he thought to himself, Xiao Hei, were you the one who attacked just now? If this Dragon Lord didn't attack, would I have just watched you die? There are simply too many experts in this place, so this Dragon Lord didn't dare to casually attack. If it wasn't for the fact that it was a matter of life and death, this Dragon Lord wouldn't have been forced to help you. Xiao Hei's helpless voice suddenly rang out in his mind. That energy just now didn't seem to be yours, right? LV Yongsheng's eyes narrowed as he stared coldly at Zhuo Wen. It seems like you have quite a big secret on you. No wonder you were able to force Yuan Hua to use an Emperor Realm armor technique when you were only a half step to the ultimate Emperor Realm. However, it's a pity that a genius like you will soon fall today. As he spoke, LV Yongsheng suddenly took a step forward, and his gaze carried a trace of killing intent as he flashed towards Zhuo Wen. Rumble. A gentle punch was enough to cause the surrounding space to crumble. Looking at the incoming fist, Zhuo Wen's complexion turned extremely ugly. The blood-colored maple leaves on the surface of his body transformed into a blood-colored shield, blocking the attack. At the same time, the boundless sword aura transformed into an impenetrable wall, protecting Zhuo Wen. It's just a small trick. Do you think you can stop me with this little trick? Looking at Zhuo Wen's defensive means, LV Yongsheng's eyes were filled with disdain. His fist directly blasted out. It was a simple punch without any technique at all. Boom! What made Zhuo Wen's pupils shrink was that the blood-colored shield formed by the blood-colored maple leaf was like paper, instantly shattering. With a ding sound, it actually smashed into the iron wall of the infinite sword aura. Clang! A crisp sound suddenly rang out. The boundless sword aura only lasted for 2 breaths of time before it was shattered and turned back into 108 sword-shaped soul treasures. However, the luster on the surface of these sword-shaped soul treasures had dimmed. It was obvious that the previous punch had severely damaged the boundless sword aura. Lightning serpent wings, block it. With a loud shout, the 2 huge lightning wings on Zhuo Wen's back immediately wrapped around him. In an instant, Zhuo Wen had turned into a round egg covered in lightning. Boom! LV Yongsheng was expressionless. After destroying the boundless sword energy and the maple leaf energy, he didn't stop at all. He once again poured all his strength into his fist and slammed it into the lightning defense formed by the lightning serpent wings and lightning serpent wings. Sizzle! Sizzle! An ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out. Then, countless bolts of lightning surged out, continuously blocking LV Yongsheng's advancing fist. You have some skills. LV Yongsheng also felt a trace of obstruction and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. However, this surprise only lasted for a moment. But it's still not enough. You're just a puny half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator. This is not enough to stop me. Break. With a cold snort, the aura on LV Yongxing's body rose to the extreme. Then, his right fist suddenly turned golden, and countless cyclones formed around his fist. Countless cyclones exploded in an instant, directly blowing the surrounding thunderbolts into nothingness. Boom! With a gentle shake of his right hand, the countless bolts of lightning covering Zhuowen's body were instantly shattered into nothingness. Poochie. After spitting out another mouthful of blood, Zhuowen's face turned incomparably pale. However, LV Yongxing was clearly not going to give up. His right hand coiled forward like a venomous snake and viciously slammed into Zhuowen's chest. However, what made LV Yongxing frown slightly was that when his right hand touched Zhuowen's chest, the strange ink-black energy from before actually blocked most of his attack. Poochie. Although Xiao Hei's power had neutralized most of LV Yongxing's power, LV Yongxing was still a genuine three-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Just a portion of his power was enough to make Zhuowen's chest feel stuffy. He tasted something sweet in his throat and couldn't help but spit out blood as he retreated. His face had become incomparably pale. Bastard. LV Yongxing, if I don't die this time, you can just wait for my bloody revenge. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was extremely weak. He glared at LV Yongxing in front of him with an extremely venomous gaze as he spoke unwillingly. Revenge? Do you think an ant like you has the right to take revenge on me? However, you won't have the chance to do so. Today is the day you die. So just obediently accept your death. LV Yongxing stared disdainfully at the unresigned youth below him as he spoke with a calm expression. In his eyes, a half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator like Zhuowen was indeed an ant-like existence. If it wasn't for Lu Yuanhua, he wouldn't even have bothered to make a move. After saying that, LV Yongxing didn't give Zhuowen a chance to speak. With a light tap of his foot, he arrived in front of Zhuowen once again. His right hand gently swung out and directly struck Zhuowen's head. If this attack connected, Zhuowen would definitely die. Bang! Just as LV Yongxing's palm was about to strike Zhuowen's head, a somewhat coarse hand gently grasped LV Yongxing's palm. Then, as if time had stopped, the two hands stopped in mid-air and didn't move at all. LV Yongxing's pupils abruptly shrank because he realized that his hand was actually unable to move. It was as if there was an extremely strong resistance preventing his hand from moving forward. Who is it? How dare you obstruct me? LV Yongxing coldly shouted as he raised his head slightly and looked directly at the owner of this coarse hand. He saw a middle-aged man dressed in grey clothes quietly looking at LV Yongxing with a mocking smile on his face. Senior Qiu. Zhuowen couldn't help but exclaim in surprise as he looked at the grey-clothed man in front of him in astonishment. This middle-aged man was the #1 expert of Broken Rock City, Qiu. He was an ultimate emperor realm expert with 4 wheels and was much stronger than LV Yongxing. When he saw LV Yongxing trying to kill Zhuowen, he immediately rushed over to the mortal level loft area. Fortunately, he managed to make it in time. Bang! LV Yongxing twisted his right hand and easily broke free from Qiu's grasp. He took a few steps back and looked at Qiu with a somewhat serious expression. You're actually an ultimate emperor realm expert. Which faction are you from? You actually helped a lowly commoner from a small low-level city. I am Qiu of Broken Rock City. Little friend Zhuowen has saved my life. This is the reason why I helped him, Qiu said with an indifferent gaze. The #1 expert of Broken Rock City, Qiu? When LV Yongxing heard this, his expression immediately became somewhat ugly. This Qiu was famous for being a lunatic. He didn't give any face to other experts at all. Zhuowen, are you alright? At the same time, Jiu Tian and the other two came to Zhuowen's side and checked on Zhuowen's injuries with concern. Then, they glared angrily at LV Yongxing. In any case, LV Yongxing was an expert on the Azure Emperor leaderboard. He was actually willing to lower himself to deal with a disciple from a low-level city like Zhuowen. This made Jiu Tian and the other two extremely angry. After all, Zhuowen was the main force of their Rattan Armor City. Is this Zhuowen really from a low-level city? Qiu Chou is the #1 expert of the super city, Broken Rock City. He actually stood up for this Zhuowen. This Zhuowen is really not simple. He was actually able to attract so many big shots. The onlookers suddenly burst into an uproar. They kept talking about it and became even more curious about Zhuowen's background. At the same time, in the sky not far away, 2 star-like clouds suddenly floated down and landed directly on the ground, revealing 2 graceful figures. They were Qing Lian and Hong Lian, who had been observing Zhuowen not far away. Mr. LV. This Zhuowen has some connections with our Jade Lady Star Court. I hope you can give our Jade Lady Star Court some face and let this young Master Zhuo go. Qing Lian bowed politely and said in a clear voice. Jade Lady Astral Court? When LV Yongsheng heard this, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. The Jade Lady Astral Court and the House of Marquis Qin were both super forces. Although they were weaker than the House of Marquis Qin, they weren't that much weaker. He didn't expect that even the Jade Lady Astral Court would stand on Zhuowen's side. You all intend to help this lowly city's lowly commoner? What does he have that is worthy of your help? LV Yongsheng frowned and asked in confusion. Lowly commoner? Qiu Chou narrowed his eyes and continued, Second Prince, you haven't heard of him, have you? Although Zhuowen comes from a low-level city, he still has another identity, and that is the honorary guest of our Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild. He once led our Broken Rock City to become the champion of the arcane ceremony, and is already a grade 3 perfection arcanist. Do you think such an arcanist is a lowly commoner? The honorary guest of your Broken Rock City's Arcana Guild? And a 3rd grade Great Perfection Arcanist. Chapter 351. When they heard that Zhuowen was a complete 3rd grade Arcana Master, not only was LV Yongsheng shocked, but even Clear Lotus and Red Lotus were stunned. The reason Clear Lotus had thought highly of Zhuowen was because of his talent in the martial way. She was willing to help Zhuowen so that he would owe them a favor. However, she hadn't expected that Zhuowen's talent in spiritual power was even more terrifying than his talent in the martial way. Zhuowen was only around 18 years old. Becoming a complete 3rd grade Arcana Master at such a young age, Clear Lotus knew very well what this meant. Zhuowen was definitely a genius in the aspect of spiritual power. With Zhuowen's terrifying talent in spiritual power, it shouldn't be a problem for him to become a 4th grade Arcana Master. Even Red Lotus, who was standing beside Clear Lotus, couldn't help but open her cherry lips when she heard this news. She stared blankly at the pale-faced young man in front of her. Originally, Zhuowen's brilliant battle record of resisting Lu Yuanhua's attacks with his half-step ultimate Emperor Realm strength had made her view Zhuowen in a new light. However, when she heard that Zhuowen was actually a complete 3rd grade Arcana Master, her new view of him transformed into extreme shock. The young man in front of her wasn't much older than her. Not only was his martial arts cultivation a little stronger than hers, but his mental energy realm was also so terrifying. This made Hong Lian, who originally thought highly of herself, feel very uncomfortable in her heart. Zhuowen, are you really a complete 3rd grade Arcana Master? Clear Lotus' beautiful eyes turned slightly, and she looked at Zhuowen with joy. An Arcana Master's influence on a faction was extremely far-reaching, especially a 4th grade Arcana Master. This kind of Arcana Master was an existence that every faction had to treat with respect. Zhuowen had reached the complete 3rd grade Arcana Master at such a young age. It was very likely that he would reach the 4th grade in the future. At this moment, the importance that Qing Lian attached to Zhuowen had already reached an extremely high level. In the beginning, she only thought that Zhuowen's martial arts talent was not bad and she only gave him a little benefit. Now, Qing Lian really began to pay attention to this inconspicuous young man in front of her. Looking at the somewhat anxious Qing Lian in front of him, Zhuowen nodded slightly. Immediately, a mental energy unique to a perfect 3rd grade overflowed, allowing the few people present to clearly feel the pressure of this mental energy. Now, Zhuowen did not dare to hide anything. After all, LV Yongsheng wanted to kill him, and he had no background, so no one would stand up for him. Now, if he revealed his grade 3 Great Perfection spiritual force, he would definitely be valued by the Jade Lady Astral Court. At that time, with the support of the Jade Lady Astral Court, Zhuowen knew that LV Yongsheng would not dare to act rashly. Sure enough, it's the mental energy of a great perfection spiritual force. I didn't expect Brother Zhuowen's mental energy talent to be so much stronger than his martial arts talent. I was wrong about you. Feeling the mental energy that Zhuowen deliberately released, Qing Lian's pretty face suddenly revealed a joyful expression. Then, with a wave of her jade-like hand, a ray of starlight suddenly swept straight toward the sky. Starlight? Miss Qing Lian, are you going to protect this boy? LV Yongsheng's face was extremely ugly. About Zhuowen's information, senior sister Luo Xing will soon know. I don't think the second prince will go against the Jade Lady Astral Court for such a small matter, right? Qing Lian looked at LV Yongsheng in front of her with a faint smile and chuckled. Luo Xing? Hearing this, LV Yongsheng's face twitched. Luo Xing, the strongest of the younger generation in the Jade Lady Astral Court, was extremely mysterious. It was said that his strength had reached a very terrifying level. On the Green Emperor list, his ranking was much higher than LV Yongsheng's, so LV Yongsheng was very afraid of him. Humph! The speed of the starlight is extremely fast. At this time, Luo Xing should also know the situation here. If she also wants to protect Zhuowen, I have nothing to say. With a cold snort, LV Yongsheng stared coldly at Zhuowen, who was behind Qiu Qiu. At this time, Lu Yuanhua also descended from mid-air. He anxiously whispered to LV Yongsheng, second brother, "Shut up. Now that Broken Rock City and the Jade Lady Astral Court are involved, that Zhuowen is not as simple as we thought. Moreover, that Zhuowen is a third-grade complete arcanist, and he has a close relationship with the Arcane Guild." LV Yongsheng coldly glanced at Lu Yuanhua and said with a gloomy face. He originally thought that Zhuowen was just an insignificant person, but now he did not expect that things would become so troublesome. What? Broken Rock City, the Jade Lady Astral Court, and the Arcane Guild are all involved? Lu Yuanhua had been in the air just now and did not hear the conversation at all. Now that he heard LV Yongsheng's words, he was a little dumbfounded. Broken Rock City was fine. It was only a super city, and the House of Marquis Qin did not care much about it. However, the Jade Lady Astral Court and the Arcane Guild were forces that the House of Marquis Qin had to treat with caution. He also did not expect that a small Zhuowen could be involved with such huge forces. What made Lu Yuanhua even more incredulous was that Zhuowen was now a third-grade complete arcanist at such a young age. Such a young mind-power genius must be a genius that the Arcane Guild focused on cultivating. Damn it! That bastard Zhuowen has become so difficult to deal with, and is also an arcane genius. Really? LV Yuanhua was somewhat flustered and exasperated as he glared at Zhuowen, who was not far away. His heart was filled with anger, and in addition to anger, there was also a trace of fear. This Zhuowen's growth was too fast. In just 2 years, his second brother had taken action, but still could not deal with this difficult guy. This made Lu Yuanhua feel a chill in the depths of his heart. On the Star Peak, in a huge palace like a coiling dragon, a slender and graceful woman stood quietly in the palace. The woman's figure was graceful, like a jasmine among hundreds of flowers, swaying gracefully. There was a layer of starlight flickering on the woman's face. Through that layer of starlight, only the outline of the woman's face could be vaguely seen. From the looming outline, one could tell that she was absolutely a beautiful woman. This woman was Luo Xing, the strongest among the younger generation of the Jade Lady Star Court. It was said that her talent was so high that in the entire Muqin County, she was second only to LV Yatao, the eldest heir of the House of Marquis Qin. She was also ranked very high on the Qing Emperor list of the Qing Xian Empire. Qing Lian actually emitted starlight. It seems that there's an emergency. Luo Xing arched her eyebrows and gently stroked her arm. A ray of starlight that came straight from the sky fell lightly into the palm of her hand. Her mind was immersed in the starlight. After a while, Luo Xing's eyebrows relaxed slightly. She said to herself in surprise, "Zhuowen? Is he the guy from the low-level city that Qing Lian recommended? He's only about 18 years old, but he's already a complete grade 3 arcanist." This boy's talent is really terrifying. But this boy is really good at causing trouble. He actually provoked the two brothers, Lu Yuanhua and LV Yongxing, from the house of Marquis Qin. With that, Lu Oxing gently waved her hand and left a message in the starlight. Then, she opened her hand, and the starlight suddenly turned into a ray of starlight and flew straight into the sky. I hope Qing Lian's intuition is right, Lu Oxing muttered to herself as she looked at the starlight that was getting farther and farther away. Whoosh! After a while, a ray of starlight came straight from the sky and fell directly into Qing Lian's hand. In the open space, everyone's eyes were focused on the starlight in Qing Lian's hand. Even LV Yongxing and Lu Yuanhua were no exception. The two of them knew that today's ending would depend on Lu Oxing's attitude. Qing Lian waved her hand, and the starlight in her hand suddenly scattered out. Countless rays of starlight formed a sentence in the air. Today's matter, I hope that the Crown Prince will give face to the Jade Lady Starcourt and let it go. Lu Oxing will be very grateful. Looking at the starlight in the air, Lu Yuanhua and LV Yongxing's expressions suddenly became extremely ugly. They knew that Lu Oxing had decided to protect Zhuowen. With a cold snort, LV Yongxing fiercely glared at Zhuowen and said, "You're Zhuowen, right? You're lucky today, but you won't be so lucky in the battle for the Tower of Vitality in 2 months. At that time, I won't be lenient with you. I hope you can live a little longer in the Tower of Vitality. Zhuowen, you're just a piece of trash that relies on women. If you didn't have the protection of these people, you would be no different from a dead dog right now." Lu Yuanhua also knew that he couldn't deal with Zhuowen today, so he coldly ridiculed. "If I'm a piece of trash, then what are you? Someone who once lost to me." Clutching his chest, Zhuowen also coldly looked at Lu Yuanhua and LV Yongxing. Today's debt, he, Zhuowen, will remember it in his heart. In the future, he will definitely pay it back double. What a smooth-talking brat. When the Tower of Vitality opens, I hope you can be as stubborn. Third brother, let's go. LV Yongxing indifferently glanced at Zhuowen, then pulled the somewhat furious Lu Yuanhua and left the mortal stage pavilion with a whoosh. That LV Yongxing and Lu Yuanhua are really too unreasonable. Relying on the power of the House of Marquis Qin, they actually ran amok in the VIP area. If it wasn't for Senior Qiu and the two ladies, Zhuowen might have really lost his life. Looking at the two LV Yongxing brothers leaving, Ji Yuxin, who was supporting Zhuowen, couldn't help but angrily curse in a low voice. After all, the VIP area was set up by the House of Marquis Qin. LV Yongxing and Lu Yuanhua are the princes of the House of Marquis Qin. Naturally, they have a way to exploit the loopholes of the VIP area. Qing Lian slightly shook her head and somewhat helplessly said, "Young Master Zhuowen, how are your injuries? Are they serious?" Her beautiful eyes slightly turned, only then did Qing Lian's gaze fall on the pale face of Zhuowen. Qing Lian was somewhat surprised that Zhuowen was actually able to survive LV Yongxing's attack. "That's right. Zhuowen, how are your injuries?" Qiu Chou also worriedly looked at Zhuowen and asked. Looking at everyone's concerned faces, Zhuowen reluctantly revealed a smile. Then, he only felt his vision turn black and directly lost consciousness. Chapter 352. The power of heaven and earth. Zhuowen felt like he had a very, very long dream. His mind was in a trance. Although he really wanted to open his eyelids, the intense fatigue caused his eyelids to droop, making it impossible for him to open them. Finally, after Zhuowen's mind had drifted in the darkness for a long time, a rather dazzling light suddenly appeared in front of him. Thus, Zhuowen rushed towards the light with all his might and finally rushed into the light's embrace. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen looked at the plainly decorated room around him. After a slight struggle, he sat up and scanned his surroundings. Zhuowen immediately recognized that this was the small room in the mundane level loft that Ratanama City had been allocated. In the hall of the room, Ji Tian, Ji Yuxin, and Hu Wuying were nervously looking at Zhuowen. When they saw that Zhuowen had woken up, the three of them were instantly overjoyed. "Zhuowen, you're finally awake." The three of them came to Zhuowen's side, and Ji Tian was the first to speak. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen asked doubtfully, Lord Jiyu, how long have I been unconscious for? My injuries have all healed. After moving his limbs, Zhuowen discovered that his internal injuries had actually healed. Furthermore, he could feel that his cultivation had faintly increased. You have been unconscious for more than a month. As for your injuries, Miss Qing Lian used a secret medicine to treat them. Jiyu Tian did not hide anything as he gave a brief account of the events that had happened during the 1 month after Zhuowen had fainted. After hearing Jiyu Tian's account, Zhuowen also knew that the injuries on his body had been treated by Qing Lian using a secret medicine. Ever since that incident, Lu Yuanhua and LV Yongsheng hadn't come to the VIP area. Looks like I owe Miss Qing Lian another favor. Zhuowen shook his head and said to himself with a bitter smile. He knew very well just how serious his injuries were. Even if he used a grade 4 healing spiritual medicine, it would probably take half a year for him to fully recover. However, he had recovered in just a month. Clearly, the secret medicine that Qing Lian had taken out was extremely precious. Jiyu Tian and the other two heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Zhuowen was fine. After discussing a few more matters with Zhuowen, the three of them did not disturb Zhuowen's rest and left one after another. After Jiyu Tian and the other two left the room, Zhuowen's eyes darkened. He said coldly in a low voice, "What a good LV Yongsheng. He almost killed me. If it wasn't for Senior Chiu and Miss Clear Lotus lending a helping hand, I might have already perished. That LV Yongsheng is an ultimate Emperor realm expert. He isn't someone that Lu Yuanhua can compare to. If he wants to crush you, it would be like crushing an ant. Brat, don't be rash." Xiao Hei suddenly appeared in front of him and said in a somewhat serious tone. I know that. The battle for the Origin Qi Tower is about to begin. The grudges between me and Lu Yuanhua and LV Yongsheng will definitely be resolved. At that time, even if I don't look for them, I'm afraid that Lu Yuanhua and the others will take the initiative to come to me. Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he sighed. Hee. This Dragon Lord is more familiar with the Origin Qi Tower than you. Once you enter, this Dragon Lord will guarantee that they won't be able to find you. Moreover, there are many ancient ruins in the Origin Qi Tower. There are many good things in those ruins. After entering the Origin Qi Tower, with your talent, the improvement in your cultivation will be extremely obvious. Xiao Hei said with a mischievous smile. Gazing at the rather proud Xiao Hei in front of him, Zhuowen slightly nodded his head. After all, Xiao Hei was in existence from ancient times. Regarding the Origin Qi Tower that was built in ancient times, Zhuowen indeed knew more than him. Moreover, the various legends regarding the Origin Qi Tower also made Zhuowen look forward to the Origin Qi Tower. After all, according to the legends, although the Origin Qi Tower was full of dangers, once one obtained some benefits from it, one would be able to soar to the heavens in the future. One's cultivation would rise steadily, and in a short period of time, one would definitely become an extremely dazzling expert in the entire Qing Xian Empire. This was also the true reason why so many genius cultivators flocked to the Origin Qi Tower like a flock of ducks. There is only 1 month left until the battle for the Origin Qi Tower. I should use this 1 month to properly consolidate my current realm. Although Zhuowen was indeed looking forward to the Origin Qi Tower, he also knew that it was useless to think too much now. The most important thing was to raise his strength as much as possible. This power is... When Zhuowen sat down cross-legged and silently operated the suction force of the meridians in his body to absorb the rich origin qi outside his body, he suddenly discovered that in addition to the golden origin qi in his dantian, there was also an additional grey vortex-shaped energy. This energy was only the size of a thumb and appeared extremely inconspicuous in the entire dantian. Moreover, it was constantly rotating in the form of a vortex. After careful observation, Zhuowen was surprised to discover that this grey energy was like a black hole, constantly swallowing the golden origin qi around it. Moreover, with this continuous swallowing, Zhuowen could feel that this strange grey energy was actually slowly growing, like a baby that was constantly absorbing nutrients and slowly growing. What exactly is this thing? How did it appear in my dantian? Frowning slightly, Zhuowen muttered in astonishment. Kid. The gray energy in your dantian is the power of heaven and earth. It was left in your meridians when LV Yongsheng attacked you last time. Afterwards, for some unknown reason, this power of heaven and earth followed your meridians and entered your dantian. Xiao Hei explained. The power of heaven and earth. What's the use of it? This gray energy has been constantly devouring the origin energy within my dantian. If I allow it to continue devouring, then I'm afraid my origin energy will really be completely exhausted. Zhuo Wen was stunned, and he spoke without rhyme or reason. Xiao Hei raised her little paw and held her forehead. She fiercely rolled her eyes at Zhuowen and said unhappily, "What use is it? Kid, water must have entered your brain. Let this Dragon Lord tell you, this power of heaven and earth is very useful to you. It can be said that you've really hit the jackpot. You also know that Ultimate Emperor Realm experts use the power of heaven and earth. The power of heaven and earth is a higher level of energy than Origin Qi. As long as you can control the power of heaven and earth, then all the Origin Qi in the world will listen to your command. Practitioners below the Ultimate Emperor Realm can only use the Origin Qi in their bodies, but Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioners can use the Origin Qi in their surroundings. Think about it, how can the Origin Qi in a small practitioner's body compare to the enormous amount of Origin Qi in the world? This is the main reason why Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioners are different from those of lower realms. Only when a practitioner reaches the Ultimate Emperor Realm will the Origin Qi in their dantian transform into the power of heaven and earth. Right now, you're only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner, but your dantian already has a trace of the power of heaven and earth. Do you know what this means? This means that you can easily use the power of heaven and earth in battle, and your attack power is not inferior to an Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner's. At this point, Xiao Hei rolled her eyes at Zhuowen again. Her eyes were filled with resentment that Zhuowen had failed to live up to her expectations. Zhuowen's face immediately lit up when he heard this. His defense was originally extremely strong, and even an Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner like Lu Yuanhua had been helpless against Zhuowen's defense. When Zhuowen had fought Lu Yuanhua head-on, he'd been at a disadvantage mainly because his attacks were much weaker than Lu Yuanhua's. This was also why Zhuowen had been beaten up so badly. However, things were different now. A trace of the power of heaven and earth that a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner shouldn't possess had appeared in Zhuowen's dantian. This meant that Zhuowen now had the ability to use the power of heaven and earth. With this ability, the power of Zhuowen's attacks would at least double. Looks like you've profited from a disaster. Although you were beaten up by Lu Yongsheng one-sidedly back then, that Lu Yongsheng probably didn't expect that it would actually help you and give you the ability to use the power of heaven and earth. Xiao Hei revealed her trademark sly smile. Furthermore, now that you have an affinity with the power of heaven and earth, you obviously meet the requirements to learn an Emperor Tier armor skill. If others knew that an Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner could not only use the power of heaven and earth, but also use an Emperor Tier armor skill, wouldn't everyone's jaws drop? An Emperor Tier armor skill could only be learned by cultivators above the Ultimate Emperor Realm. This was because every step of an Emperor Tier armor skill required an extremely large amount of origin energy to be used. The amount of origin energy required far exceeded the limit of a cultivator's dantian. If a cultivator below the Ultimate Emperor Realm tried to forcefully use an Emperor Tier armor skill, they would probably die from exhaustion before they could even use the skill. Only cultivators above the Ultimate Emperor Realm who had grasped the power of heaven and earth could use the vast amount of origin energy in their surroundings to fully use an Emperor Tier armor skill. Do you think an Emperor Tier armor skill is something that can be bought from a street stall? Even a faction like the House of Marquis Qin doesn't have much of an Emperor Tier armor skill, let alone someone like me. Zhuowen shrugged his shoulders and said straightforwardly, Emperor Tier armor skills are indeed extremely rare in your era where the martial Dao has declined. However, in the ancient era where experts were as common as trees in the forest, I'm afraid that Emperor Tier armor skills were really like street goods that could be found everywhere. The Origin Tower is an item left behind by an ancient era power. There is no lack of Emperor Tier armor skills inside, Xiao Hei said with a faint smile. Upon hearing these words, Zhuo Wen nodded his head. The Yuan Energy Tower was extremely famous in the entire Qing Xian Empire. Naturally, there would be many treasures inside for it to have such a great reputation. There is still a month before you can enter the Origin Tower. During this month, it is best for you to slowly nurture the power of heaven and earth in your dantian. When the time comes, the power you will be able to unleash will also increase accordingly. After glancing at Zhuowen indifferently, Xiao Hei directly disappeared between Zhuowen's brows after she finished speaking. There is only a month left. Chapter 353. Thousand Knowledge Scroll. When the first rays of the morning sun shone down, the originally cold provincial capital became extremely lively. Countless people passed through the various streets, all of them heading towards the same direction. At the end of that direction was a gigantic pagoda that pierced through the clouds. It was as if it was a pillar that had stood between the heavens and the earth since time immemorial. It was grand and imposing, and that gigantic pagoda was the symbol of the provincial capital, the Origin Qi Pagoda. Today was the most glorious day of the provincial capital, the day of the Origin Qi Pagoda battle. Cultivators from various forces in the provincial capital all flocked towards the Origin Qi Pagoda. They all wanted to see what the Origin Qi Pagoda battle that countless geniuses were going crazy for was like. Everyone was looking forward to it, longing for it, and at the same time, excited. In a rather inconspicuous pavilion in the Mortal Stage Pavilion, a young man slowly opened his eyes. His starry eyes were filled with a bright light as he muttered in a low voice, "Time really passes quickly. A month has passed in the blink of an eye. Today is the day of the Origin Qi Pagoda's opening." This youth was Zhuowen. During this month, Zhuowen had basically stayed in his room, trying to strengthen the strand of grey energy within his dantian, which was commonly known as the energy of the heavens and the earth. After a month of tireless nurturing and effort, the energy of the heavens and the earth within his dantian, which was originally the size of a thumb, had finally grown to the size of a quail's egg. Although the change in size wasn't great at first, it had an extremely profound effect on Zhuowen. Zhuowen could feel that his body was becoming more and more familiar with the resonance of the energy of the heavens and the earth. At this moment, Zhuowen could even use a small amount of the energy of the heavens and the earth to attack. The power of his attacks was no weaker than that of an Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. Although Zhuowen was still a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator, his ability to use the energy of the heavens and the earth had already far surpassed all other half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators. Some of the weaker Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators might not even be a match for Zhuowen. If Zhuowen were to meet Lu Yuanhua again now, although he wasn't sure if he could defeat Lu Yuanhua, he was sure that he wouldn't be at a disadvantage like last time. Dong dong. The crisp sound of knocking suddenly rang out, followed by Jiu Yutian's voice. "Zhuowen, today is the opening day of the Yuan Qi Tower. The representatives of our low-level cities need to gather at the plaza outside the Yuan Qi Tower. Come out quickly." After replying softly, Zhuowen pushed open the door. Jiu Yutian, Jiu Xin, and Hu Wuying were standing outside. When the three of them saw that Zhuowen's complexion was not bad, they all sighed in relief. After all, Zhuowen was the strongest among them. He was also the hope of leading Rattan Armor City into the top 1,000. They did not want anything to happen to Zhuowen. "Thank you for your trouble. Let's go to the square." With a faint smile, Zhuowen followed Jiu Yutian and the other two out of the Mortal Stage loft and headed to the huge plaza far away from the loft. Along the way, the four of them met many city representatives who were hurrying to the plaza. Because they were in the Mortal Stage loft, the strength of these city representatives was a mix of good and bad. Basically, not many of them had reached the Heavenly King realm. This made Zhuowen sigh with sorrow at the sorrow of being a low-level city. With the pitiful foundation of a low-level city, it was very difficult to cultivate a particularly powerful genius. Therefore, the geniuses sent out were basically very weak. In the entire Yuan Qi Tower battle, they were at the bottom of the ladder. It could be said that they were simply cannon fodder. At the same time, most of the geniuses in the Yuan Qi Tower battle came from low-level cities. After all, the number of low-level cities in the territory of Muqin County was as numerous as the hairs on an ox. Even if each low-level city only sent out one genius, the number of geniuses they sent out was still more than the total number of high-level cities and supercities. However, these geniuses from low-level cities were basically stepping stones for high-level cities. In every Yuan Chi Tower battle, the geniuses from low-level cities had the highest mortality rate. Even so, low-level cities still tirelessly sent out their own geniuses to participate in the Yuan Chi Tower battle. This was because if one of the geniuses sent out by a low-level city had a fortuitous encounter in the Yuan Chi Tower and soared to the sky, then their low-level city would really have a complete turnaround. There were naturally such examples in the past Yuan Chi Tower battles, but the probability was pitifully low. Zhuowen's group of 4 did not slow down and soon arrived at the designated plaza. At this time, the plaza was already filled with a terrifying amount of people. It was like a sea of people, like a sleeping dragon. This plaza stretched for tens of thousands of miles. Just the area of this plaza alone was not inferior to the area of an ordinary low-level city. Countless people were crowded inside, and at a glance, there were probably tens of thousands of people. After arriving at the crowded plaza, Zhuowen's brows could not help but slightly wrinkle. This place was really too crowded. As far as the eye could see, there were people everywhere. This made Zhuowen, who liked peace and quiet, feel rather uncomfortable. The plaza was very close to the Yuan Chi Tower, which was like a pillar that supported the heavens. At the same time, Zhuowen's group in the plaza also noticed that in the other 3 directions of the Yuan Chi Tower, there were actually similarly huge plazas. There were also many people standing on these plazas. However, compared to the plaza Zhuowen's group was in, the other 3 plazas were clearly much more deserted. The number of people was also not as terrifying as the one on Zhuowen's side. The 3 plazas should be where the representatives of the intermediate city, advanced city, and super city stood. Looking at the 3 clearly deserted plazas, Zhuowen then looked at the crowded plaza he was in. He could only secretly sigh in his heart. Swoosh! At this time, a figure suddenly flew over from above the plaza. This figure's clothes were similar to that of Du Yang, who was killed by Zhuowen. It was a middle-aged man with white hair. The administrator is here. Let's all be quiet. As soon as the middle-aged man arrived, the originally noisy plaza suddenly became completely silent. Everyone looked at the middle-aged man floating in the air with reverence. This is the new administrator of the Mortal Stage Pavilion. The previous administrator, Du Yang, was killed by you. Fortunately, Miss Clear Lotus and Senior Chiu have already helped you cover up this matter, so the House of Marquis Qin didn't blame you. Jiu Tian whispered in Zhuowen's ear. Hearing this, Zhuowen couldn't help but rub his nose with an awkward expression. In fact, after killing Du Yang last time, Zhuowen secretly cursed in his heart. After all, although the administrator of the Mortal Stage Pavilion wasn't an important position, he couldn't be casually killed. If the House of Marquis Qin really investigated, their Rattan Armor City would very likely be directly arrested. Fortunately, Senior Cho and Miss Clear Lotus both cleaned up Zhuowen's mess. Otherwise, their Rattan Armor City probably wouldn't even have the qualifications to participate in the Yuan Chi Tower. The administrator floating in the air glanced down indifferently, then patted his Chenkuan bag and took out a rather thick scroll. This scroll is called the 1000 Knowledge Scroll. It is a spirit treasure specially used to record information. This scroll records the information of each of your cities. After this old man opens the scroll, each of your city representatives will take out a mortal stage token and use Yuan Chi to copy the information of your city from the scroll into the mortal stage token. At this point, the administrator's eyes suddenly became serious. He silently looked down at the people below and continued, "Remember, only the mortal stage token with the information of the city in the scroll is qualified to enter the Yuan Chi Tower. If the mortal stage token doesn't have the slightest bit of information, then the Yuan Chi Tower will refuse your entry." As soon as the administrator said this, everyone in the plaza suddenly became extremely serious. Obviously, this was related to the Yuan Chi Tower, so no one dared to have the slightest bit of fun. Basically, every low-level city representative had a mortal stage token. It was issued by the guard at the entrance of the VIP area. At first, it was used to choose a room in the mortal stage pavilion, but now, it had such a big use. It was actually the key to entering the Yuan-Chi Tower. Of course, the mortal stage token only represented a low-level city. Above it, there were 3 types of mortal stage token, earth stage token, and heaven stage token, respectively, which corresponded to intermediate, advanced, and super cities. Seeing the solemn expressions of everyone in the plaza, the administrator nodded slightly. Then, with a wave of his hand, he opened the huge scroll floating beside him. Golden light flickered and the contents of the scroll were completely presented in front of everyone. There were many golden words written in it. If one were to look carefully, one would discover that the contents of these words were actually a series of introductions to various low-ranked cities. Jinlin City, low-level city, City Lord Zhang Keshuang. Strongest, Zhang Keshuang, perfect Earth King stage martial artist. Yongfan City, low-level city, City Lord Wang Yongbang. Strongest, Wang Yongbang, advanced Earth King stage martial artist. The scroll recorded the basic information of the various low-level cities. In addition, there were also the names and strength of the representatives of the various cities participating in the Yuan-Chi Tower battle. These were all written clearly in the scroll. The numerous martial artists in the plaza were not in a hurry to use their Yuan-Chi to copy the information of their own city. Instead, they carefully observed the basic information of the other cities in the scroll. After all, once they entered the Yuan-Chi Tower, every city would be their enemy. The earlier they understood the ins and outs of the other cities, the better it would be for their next actions in the Yuan-Chi Tower. Hiss, hiss, hiss. While everyone was concentrating on the contents of the scroll, a series of ear-piercing sounds suddenly rang out. Then, everyone's gaze gathered on an extremely inconspicuous row of information in the scroll. Rattan Armor City, low-level city, City Lord Jiu Tian. Strongest, Zhuoan, half-step ultimate emperor stage martial artist. When the information of Rattan Armor City finally appeared before everyone's eyes, the large plaza suddenly became somewhat strangely silent. Everyone stared blankly at the row of information that marked Rattan Armor City, their eyes filled with rich disbelief. Chapter 354. Lu Nantian Marquis of Muqin. This Zhuoan is actually a half-step into the ultimate emperor realm? Don't tell me he's the one who fought with Lu Yuanhua, the third prince of the house of Marquis Qin in the mundane level loft? It must be him. At that time, that youth was also a half-step into the ultimate emperor realm, but he was able to hold his own against Lu Yuanhua, who was already at the one-wheel ultimate emperor realm. In the end, he even attracted the attention of the second prince of the house of Marquis Qin, Lu Yongsheng. Moreover, the Jade Lady Starcourt, which is also one of the 5 superpowers of the province, and the powerful Broken Rock City, both stood up for him. In the end, the matter was left unsettled. What is the origin of this Rattan Armor City? A mere low-level city can actually cultivate such a genius. It seems that Rattan Armor City is very likely to rise up. After a brief moment of silence, the square suddenly erupted into an uproar. Everyone stared fervently at the information about Rattan Armor City as they discussed animatedly. Hearing the fervent discussions around them, Jiu Tian and the other 2 beside Zhuoan couldn't help but reveal a trace of pride on their faces. The manager floating in the air looked at Zhuoan's record with fear in his eyes. He knew that the previous manager of the mundane level loft had been directly killed by Zhuoan. Moreover, the house of Marquis Qin didn't blame him at all. It was obvious that this Zhuoan, who came from a low-level city, wasn't a simple person. With a flick of his sleeve, the manager sternly shouted, "Don't waste any more time. Quickly copy the information in the scroll into your tokens. The Marquis of Muqin will be here soon." Following the manager's berating, the people below didn't waste any more time. They all used their yuan power to copy the information in the scroll into their tokens. Zhuoan, who was standing in an inconspicuous corner of the crowd, looked at the information in the scroll with interest. This was the first time he had seen such a special soul treasure. It was said that the Azure Emperor leaderboard in the Imperial City was a soul treasure of this nature. However, the Azure Emperor leaderboard was of a much higher level than the 1000 Knowledge Scroll. Thinking of this, Zhuowen took out a black token with the word ordinary written on it. It was the ordinary token that was given to the VIP area. Then, he secretly used the yuan power in his body to touch the 1000 knowledge scroll in the air. With a thought, Zhuowen discovered that information regarding Ratanama City was transmitted from the 1000 knowledge scroll into the token in his hand through Zhuowen's yuan power. Subsequently, the words Ratanama City appeared on the originally smooth and flat back. Very quickly, the people in the plaza copied the information in the 1000 knowledge scroll into their respective tokens. The manager waved his right hand and kept the 1000 knowledge scroll into his Chenkuan bag. With a light step, he landed on a high platform not far away and waited with his eyes closed. Everyone in the plaza knew that the person in charge of the Origin Energy Tower was the #1 expert in Muqin County, Lu Nantian. It was said that his cultivation was unfathomable. It was very likely that he had reached the legendary level of 4 Supremes. Many people were in awe of the #1 expert in Muqin County. Therefore, they all waited quietly in the plaza. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. This wait didn't last for long. The people in the plaza saw a dozen figures appear in the sky. These dozen figures all had surging auras. Their strength was not something an ordinary person could compare with. Especially at the front of this group, there was a stalwart figure wearing a deep purple robe. The aura emitted from his body was as vast as the night sky filled with stars. He's here. That's the true ruler of Muqin County, the Marquis of Muqin, Lu Nantian. He's really strong. Just the aura he's unintentionally leaking gives me an unfathomable feeling. Marquis Lu is the strongest expert in our county. His strength is naturally not something we can see through. When the group arrived and appeared in front of everyone, the entire plaza was in an uproar. Everyone looked at the stalwart figure in awe. In the crowd, Zhuowen's gaze was also focused on the stalwart figure. There was a trace of emotion in his eyes. The Lu Nantian in front of him was a rather ordinary middle-aged man. There was a trace of a gentle smile on his resolute face. At first glance, he couldn't help but have a good impression of him. Is this the Muqin Marquis Lu Nantian, whose name is famous in the entire Muqin County? Zhuowen murmured softly. A trace of reverence appeared in his heart. He could sense the extremely threatening aura from the stalwart figure. It was enough to destroy everything. There were over a dozen young men behind Lu Nantian. They all wore similar clothes, so they were probably the geniuses sent by the house of Marquis Qin. From the auras of these young men, they were basically at the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm or above. There were even a few auras that had reached the Ultimate Emperor realm. Zhuowen also saw Lu Yuanhua and Lu Yongsheng standing side by side in the group. At this moment, the two of them were standing respectfully behind a young man who wasn't much older than them. He's actually able to make Lu Yuanhua and Lu Yongsheng act so respectfully. He must be the eldest son of the house of Marquis Qin, as well as the strongest person of the younger generation in Muqin County, Luitao, Jiu Tian suddenly said. Millimeter. Zhuowen nodded with a grave expression, then turned his attention to Luitao. Luitao's appearance was quite similar to his father, Lu Nantian. The corners of his mouth were constantly curled up in a gentle smile. His handsome face was filled with gentleness, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. He gave off a rather carefree aura. However, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with dread. This was because he realized that he couldn't see through this carefree and handsome Luitao at all. Luitao gave Zhuowen the feeling that he was like a deep pool of water. Although the surface of Luitao was calm, the depths of Luitao were actually turbulent. This person is very dangerous. The moment he saw Luitao, Zhuowen became vigilant. This Luitao gave him a much stronger sense of threat than Lu Yongsheng. Zhuowen believed that if he were to fight with Luitao right now, he would undoubtedly die. As if he had noticed Zhuowen's gaze, Luitao turned his head slightly. His somewhat deep eyes instantly looked towards Zhuowen's direction. After looking at Zhuowen for a second, his expression was calm as he naturally turned his head back. What a sharp perception. This Luitao is a little too strong. Zhuowen's gaze slightly narrowed as he spoke in a low voice. Zhuowen, you have to be careful of this Luitao. This person is ranked 15th on the Green Emperor leaderboard. Among the countless geniuses in the entire Qing Empire, he is an extremely terrifying person. Jiu Tian also noticed Zhuowen's abnormal state and reminded him. Jiu Tian nodded slightly. He had collected quite a bit of information regarding the experts in the prefecture capital. Zhuowen was also very clear about this. In the entire Muqin prefecture, the true geniuses basically came from the prefecture capital. However, the geniuses in Muqin prefecture only occupied 6 places on the Green Emperor leaderboard. In other words, out of the total 100 places on the Green Emperor leaderboard, Muqin prefecture only occupied 6 places. It could be said that the competition on the Green Emperor leaderboard was extremely intense. In other words, if one was not the top genius in a prefecture, one would not be qualified to be on the Green Emperor leaderboard. In the collected information, apart from Luotao, the other 5 geniuses on the Green Emperor leaderboard were Luo Xing from the Jade Lady Star Court, Zhu Kai from the Imperial Sword Sect, Xu Tianliang from the Marquis residence of Baichuan, Qin Batian from the Marquis residence of Yongsheng, and LV Yongsheng from the House of Marquis Qin. These 6 top geniuses were the seeded contestants of the Battle of the Vitality Tower. Luo Xing from the Jade Lady Star Court was ranked relatively high. She was ranked 30th on the Green Emperor leaderboard. In Muqin prefecture, she was a peerless genius second only to LV Tao. This was the main reason why LV Yongsheng was so afraid of Luo Xing. Although LV Yongsheng was also a genius on the Green Emperor leaderboard, he was ranked at the bottom. Xu Tianliang, Qin Batian, and Zhu Kai's rankings on the Green Emperor leaderboard were about the same. They were basically ranked at the bottom of the 70th to 80th place. Even so, they were still 1 in 100 geniuses in the entire Qing Empire. In the sky above the square, Lu Yuanhua and LV Yongsheng, who were standing behind LV Tao, also saw the strange state of their elder brother. Naturally, they followed the former's line of sight and looked down at the square below. Suddenly, they saw the rather inconspicuous Zhuowen in the crowd below. It's actually that bastard Zhuowen. Humph. Wait until we enter the Vitality Tower. We'll definitely tear this brat to pieces. Lu Yuanhua was so angry that his teeth itched. Don't worry, third brother. This Zhuowen will definitely die in the Vitality Tower. Those who offend our House of Marquis Qin will not have a good ending. LV Yongsheng said with a cold smile. LV Tao also saw that the expressions of the 2 behind him were not right. He frowned slightly and said, "Second brother, third brother, do you know that young man? Big brother. That brat is the Zhuowen I told you about. This brat is extremely daring and dares to do anything. The manager of the Mortal Pavilion, Du Yang, was killed by this brat. Second brother's subordinate, General Fei Chang, also died in his hands. We have an extremely great enmity with this brat." Lu Yuanhua said fiercely. "Oh, he's the Zhuowen you speak of. He actually looks so young. I heard you say that this brat is from a low-level city. With the weak foundation of a low-level city, he can actually grow to such an extent. This brat's talent is not ordinary," LV Tao said calmly. "What's the use of having high talent? Without a strong foundation, this brat will only grow more and more behind us. If we want to crush him, it will be as easy as crushing an ant." LV Yongsheng sneered. LV Tao nodded slightly. He glanced indifferently at Zhuowen and said, "Second brother is right. A genius without a strong foundation will only be reduced to mediocrity in the end. This Zhuowen's talent is good because he is lucky. However, he was born in a low-level city. It can only be said that fate is playing tricks on him. I won't get involved in the enmity between you and that brat. After all, he's just an ant from a low-level city. If you can't even deal with this brat, you'll really lose face for our House of Marquis Qin." Chapter 355. Opening the Yuan Energy Tower. At the center of the 4 squares, there was an extremely tall platform. Lu Nantian led the people behind him and lightly landed on the platform. Everyone in the square focused their attention on Lu Nantian and the others. Whoosh! Whoosh! Big brother Lu. I didn't expect you to be the first one to arrive every time. It seems like you're still punctual as always. Not long after Lu Nantian and the others landed on the platform, a clear voice suddenly reverberated between heaven and earth. Soon after, a nebula swept over from the distant horizon and instantly arrived on the platform. In the blink of an eye, it turned into dozens of figures. As soon as these dozens of figures appeared on the platform, they immediately attracted the attention of many people in the square below. This was because this team that had just appeared was composed of charming and alluring women. Their graceful figures, dressed in light muslin, immediately attracted the attention of many people. Haha. So it's the master of the meteorite. This time, it seems like the Yuan master really values this Yuan energy tower battle. She actually personally led a team here. Lu Nantian slightly cupped his hands and said in a rather straightforward manner. The master of the meteorite was the owner of the Jade Lady Star Court. At the same time, she was also a graceful and beautiful woman. Although the master of the meteorite was extremely beautiful, no one dared to provoke her. This was because the strength of the master of the meteorite was at the top of the entire province. Even Lu Nantian did not dare to slight her in the slightest. This Yuan energy tower battle is different from the past. I heard that many ancient ruins have appeared on the 4th floor of the Yuan energy tower. Who would miss such an opportunity? The master of the meteorite gently smiled. Her charming face was filled with tenderness, causing many people to be stunned. Lu Nantian slightly nodded and said, in the entire Yuan energy tower, the 4th floor is the most miraculous and precious place. Countless ancient ruins have appeared on the 4th floor. This king has indeed discovered some new ancient ruins on the 4th floor of the Vitality Tower, but the danger level is much higher than before. Aren't you afraid that your precious disciple will have an accident inside? The master of the meteorite glanced at Luo Xing, who was standing quietly behind him, and said with a smile, Luo Xing is not a flower in a greenhouse. She was able to rank 30th on the Green Emperor leaderboard in just a few years, not because of luck, but because of her true strength. Haha. That's true. Luo Xing from your Jade Lady Star Court is indeed gifted. She is even younger than our Dower, but her achievements are not far behind Dower. After saying that, Lu Nantian suddenly turned to Elviatao behind him and said with a smile, Dower, haven't you always wanted to meet Falling Star of the Jade Lady Star Court? Today, you should have a good chat with Luo Xing. When Elviatao heard this, the originally calm expression on his face suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a look of surprise. He elegantly walked over to Luo Xing and said, Miss Luo Xing, I have long heard of your great name, but I have never had the chance to meet you. Today, I am really shocked by your beauty. This time, the ancient ruins on the 4th floor of the Vitality Tower are said to be full of dangers. It may be best for us to join forces. Elviatao's gaze was quite eager as he stared at the peerless beauty in front of him. Luo Xing's appearance was extremely beautiful in the entire county capital. She was known as the #1 beauty in the entire county capital. Such a beauty, even Elviatao, who had a somewhat indifferent and carefree personality, could not help but feel a rush of excitement for the beautiful woman in front of him. Luo Xing smiled and said, Young Master LV is really too polite. Everyone knows that the ancient ruins are full of dangers. When the time comes, Luo Xing will have to look up to young Master LV. When Elviatao heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. His face was full of smiles. At the back of the Jade Lady Star Court's team, the somewhat mischievous Hong Lian whispered to Qing Lian beside her, Senior Sister Luo Xing's charm is really great. Even the carefree Elviatao is so infatuated with Senior Sister Luo Xing. Senior Sister Luo Xing is born with the Star Jade body. She has a pure temperament. Coupled with Senior Sister Luo Xing's devastatingly beautiful appearance, even I am a little tempted. Qing Lian smiled and said somewhat absent-mindedly. Seeing Qing Lian like this, Hong Lian said mischievously, Senior Sister Qing Lian, you can't be thinking about that Zhuoan, right? Hong Lian, what nonsense are you talking about? When did I think about that guy? When Qing Lian heard this, a faint blush suddenly appeared on her fair face. She could not help but feel ashamed and annoyed. Senior Sister, you are blushing. Hihi, I must have guessed correctly. Hong Lian smiled mischievously and patted Qing Lian's shoulder. Junior sister, you. Looking at the mischievous Hong Lian in front of her, Qing Lian felt even more ashamed and annoyed. In the square, Zhuowen also saw the Jade Lady Starcourt that had just landed on the platform above. When Zhuowen saw Luo Xing behind the master of the meteorite, a trace of amazement appeared in his eyes. The #1 expert of the younger generation of the Jade Lady Starcourt, Luo Xing, was born with such a peerless appearance. Her beauty was almost no less than Mu Chunxue. Moreover, Luo Xing faintly revealed a trace of pure and clean temperament. She was like a lotus flower that had emerged from the mud without being stained, firmly attracting the attention of everyone. Whether it was her appearance or temperament, this woman was unique. She was like the most dazzling star in the night sky. One would be completely attracted by her at first glance. She is really a peerless and wonderful person. No wonder even Elviatao is so infatuated with her, Zhuowen muttered, shaking his head as he looked at Elviatao, who was fawning over Luo Xing. Although Zhuowen was also quite amazed by Luo Xing, he did not act like a pig. After all, Zhuowen's heart was now completely filled with Mu Chunxue's shadow. The reason why he was so desperate to participate in the Essence Tower battle, other than the Icefire holy symbol, was mainly because of Mu Chunxue. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Time passed minute by minute. In the distant sky, 3 more teams swept over. These 3 teams were naturally the other 3 of the 5 superpowers in the province capital. They were the Imperial Sword Sect, Marquis Baichuan, and Marquis Yongsheng. Among them, the sect master of the Imperial Sword Sect was a middle-aged man wearing a cyan robe and carrying a long sword on his back. On the other hand, Marquis Baichuan's appearance made everyone's jaws drop. He was actually a short and fat midget. This made many people in the square have strange expressions on their faces. As for Marquis Yongsheng, he was a young man whose appearance was more beautiful than a woman's. He always had a feminine smile on his face, which made people feel somewhat uncomfortable. Zhuowen even saw a few familiar figures in the teams of the Imperial Sword Sect and Marquis Baichuan. They were Guang Mo of the Imperial Sword Sect and Xu Mu of the Marquis Baichuan. These 2 people were acquaintances that Zhuowen had met 2 years ago in the ancient cavern mansion. At that time, when Zhuowen displayed his powerful background, these 2 people gave face to Zhuowen and did not fight to the death with him. Xu Mu and Guang Mo both stood respectfully in the group. Although their talents were not bad, they could only be considered average in their respective factions. Therefore, the 2 of them appeared somewhat reserved and cautious. With Zhuowen's current mental strength, he could tell that Guang Mo and Xu Mu's cultivation were similar. They were both half-step Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators. This kind of strength was not bad in a high-rank city or a super city, but in the Imperial Sword Sect and Marquis Baichuan, it was only average. On the platform, Lu Nantian looked at the 3 factions that had arrived at the same time and said with a smile, "The 3 of you really came on time. Haha. It's fine as long as we're not late. Brother Lu, do you think that we're like you? Every time there's a grand event, we come so early. Even if we're early, we have to wait for others. This old man doesn't like the feeling of waiting." The short and fat Marquis Baichuan chuckled. Marquis Yongsheng took out a small mirror from his bosom and looked at himself in the mirror as he said softly, "This Marquis needs a lot of time to dress up." In front of a grand event like this, I can't be casual. If it weren't for Brother Lu's urging, this Marquis would have spent at least 2 hours to dress up. Look, my eyeliner is a bit crooked. When Marquis Yongsheng said this, Marquis Baichuan and the sect master of the Imperial Sword Sect immediately trembled and took a few steps back. Their expressions seemed to say that they didn't know this guy. Lu Nantian rolled his dead fish eyes and looked at his 3 strange old friends. His heart was filled with helplessness. He sighed and continued, all right. Since the 5 of us are here, let's start the activation of the Origin Chi Tower." When Lu Nantian finished speaking, everyone on the platform became serious. The master of the meteorite, Marquis Yongsheng, Marquis Baichuan, and the sect master of the Imperial Sword Sect all nodded seriously. After all, the activation of the Origin Chi Tower was an important matter that couldn't be taken lightly. Let's begin. As he spoke, LV Nantien lightly stomped his foot and a powerful pressure suddenly burst out from his stalwart body. It was as if he, who was originally small, had become as vast as a mountain, giving off an extremely oppressive feeling as if a mountain was collapsing in front of them. Suspended in the air, Lu Nanshan's hands constantly changed seals. The origin chi between heaven and earth turned into a golden vortex around his body. The four of you. Let's do it together. Lu Nanshan's voice spread between heaven and earth through the use of origin chi. The master of the meteorite, Marquis Yongxing, and the other two on the platform also nodded lightly. Their feet suddenly stomped and they all hovered in the air. Their hands waved complicated seals at the same time, and countless golden vortexes appeared around their bodies. Golden vortex descends from the heavens, origin chi tower opens. The four of you, lend me a hand. Lu Nantien, who was in the highest position, changed his hand seals again. Then, the golden vortexes around his body suddenly condensed above his head, turning into a deep golden spiral cave. On the other hand, the meteorite garden master and the other three had solemn expressions on their faces. They raised their hands and golden spiraling caverns appeared above their heads. These golden caverns appeared extremely deep. Waves of golden energy rotated counterclockwise along with the central axis. They were like black holes in the universe that attracted countless celestial bodies. Boom 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 boom. The gazes of the five almighty figures in the sky condensed. Their hands rotated, and they directly threw the golden caves below their heads. 5 meteorite-like golden vortexes landed on the 4 squares and the platform below, turning into golden vortexes that were dozens of feet wide in 5 places. They stood in front of each square like this. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.